$6.8 million, a flat annual fee, and 80% of the profit from parking. The Board of Trade receives $400,000 annually from the parking revenues as management fees. In 2000, the city auditor concluded that the agreement resulted in the city losing $3 million every year and that it would end up costing taxpayers $87 million in unnecessary costs over the life of the agreement. Flash forward to 2013, while campaigning for mayor, Dennis Cordair indicated that if elected, he would be moving to take back control of the parking from the Board of Trade in order to use some of the profits to improve public transit in the city. In 2014, after the election, City Councillor Arif Salim was quoted as saying that the parking would be back under city control by the end of the year. It is now the fall of 2016, and the Board of Trade has still managed to maintain its hold on the city's money-making parking operations.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions of the deputant? Seeing none. So we're finished. We'll take it into committee. Any questions to staff? Councillor Ainslie?
Thank you. Sorry, I don't have to stand up, do I?
No.
Okay. I had a question for the city manager. In your presentation this morning, Mr. Wallace, you made a reference when discussing Toronto Hydro about a need for a governance review. And I believe that was in reference to optimizing their financial results?
Yes.
Is that something that the Board of Directors of Toronto Hydro would initiate, or is that something that would come from City Council?
I think a request might properly come from City Council, but it is my view that if Council accepts the recommendation to undertake an investment to secure the dividend and secure the capital structure of the enterprise going forward, it might be in recognition of this being a very valuable company and one that requires additional care and that City of Toronto will want to be a careful and active shareholder. I would expect that would include a governance review and possibly other measures going forward as well.
Yeah, and that would kind of stem out of, so we had Deloitte just did their all the work looking at the Toronto Hydro. We have the report that was before us earlier today. So us asking or to initiate a governance review is something that would flow from there, in your opinion?
It is, and I think it would be a sensible move in order to ensure that we are maintaining and potentially enhancing the value of our investment.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion.
Oh, we have a motion. Councillor Ainslie?
Yes, I have a motion that I drafted up based on the comments, the dialogue I just had with the city manager. That City Council direct the city manager to initiate a governance review in consultation with the President and the Board of Directors of Toronto Hydro to ensure the corporation and its board have the appropriate orientation to optimize fiscal results and report to the Executive Committee in the fourth quarter of 2017.
All right, anybody else? Take the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Unrelenting progress. 20.4, Federal Infrastructure Funding Phase 1 and Phase 2. We have one speaker, Mr. Hamish Marshall. Welcome, Mr. Marshall. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. In some ways, absolutely, it's wonderful that the federal level is involved in our transit again, or to a much greater extent. It's considerable light and hope. But sometimes it actually feels like a spare change artist is asking for $10 bills because, oh, those cell phone bills are so high. Even though we've taken a bold step of asking the provincial level to enable perhaps tolling on the Gardiner, shunting it up a level, we're still pretty conservative in many ways, and I'm afraid there's really not enough action. Pardon me for sharing this again. It's only been for 20 years or so, but that $2,700 per car per year, if this can ever be turned on, it doesn't matter, you've seen it before, but $2.7 billion according to this old stat from Vancouver. we're not getting that nearly as much user fee from the automobiles as the transit users are paying, so that's really inequitable. And I think the senior levels of government are actually much more attuned to the perils of climate change, which really should be pushing us far more, far faster to actually reduce our emissions. And yes, transit is good, but we're also blowing it in some ways in that the Scarborough subway extension, I think, is really an excessive amount of expenditure, and we're missing options like the Smart Spur, which I think was torqued, like some of the numbers for the ridership, was kind of torqued to give a foregone conclusion or a certain conclusion that no, it was going to be too expensive to actually put in. The assumption was that we couldn't actually take the SRT out of service. We had to keep it operating, so therefore we needed a new corridor which would require expropriation, therefore it's like billions of dollars or whatever. But a decade ago, the TDC approved actually closing down the SRT for an 8-month period and replacing the track and replacing the vehicles. And I think that's the sort of thing that we should actually be exploring to squeeze the billions, amongst other things. In terms of other transit, if we actually get a lot of millions from the federal level, that's wonderful. But, you know, in terms of the downtown relief line thing, there it is on the west end, which I think actually needs a lot more relief because of the pressures of the Gardiner. There's a huge inflow of motor vehicles on the Gardiner that need to be given an option, because if you're going to toll, you really should have options. This local Front Street, Liberty Street, it's going up to your council meeting for an official plan amendment. And where's the transit consideration? Yes, we need the land, but no, it shouldn't be transit. And in terms of biking, there's still such a steadfast, ignoring of the potential for bikeway relief of the transit system. In London, England, they get it, and they figure that by providing a bikeway, quote, we could increase effective capacity on this stretch of the underground by as much as 10%, and for relatively minimal outlay. So there are issues. We're not nearly as green and as progressive as we might think.
All righty. On that positive note, any questions of the deputy? Seeing none? Up? Did I see anyone? No. All righty. Take it into committee. Any questions of staff? Seeing none? Any speakers? Councillor Palacio, did you have a motion? Staff have your motion? All righty. Hit your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This motion was drafted by the Deputy City Manager, Mr. Levy, and I did work with the Mayor's Office as well on this one. Just for your information, this motion was introduced and passed by Council back in May, and it was to incorporate 2 environmental assessments that are taking place. One is with the St. Clair, and the other one is with the smart track in terms of the new station there. So that's what this motion is all about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions of Councillor Palacio? No? Any further speakers? Seeing none, we will take the... Pardon me? Well, Councillor Palazzo's motion, I believe, would come first. On Councillor Palazzo's motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item is amended. Well, item is amended is the rest of the recommendation. So, all those in favor of that? Opposed? That's carried. All right. Item 20.5. Changes to the Municipal Elections Act and related matters impacting the 2018 election. We have 5 deputants. The first name on my list is Alexander Essex. Is Alexander here? All right. And then after that, Alan Kasperska, Miroslav Gavik, Dave Meslin. And, and if you don't, come on, continue. It's 3 minutes, it's not 5 minutes for people that are joining us late. So I just thought I'd let you know. Thank you for coming. And carry on.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me today. My name is Alexander Essex. I'm an assistant professor of software engineering at Western University and head of the Western Information Security and Privacy Research Laboratory, where we focus on research topics including the cybersecurity of online voting. I've come to speak to you today in support of the City Clerk's report on the changes to the Municipal Elections Act and related matters impacting the 2018 election, and specifically to draw your attention to the report's finding that, quote, there have been insufficient advances in internet security to accept the risks of implementing internet voting for the 2018 election, and that the challenges identified by city staff and security experts in the 2014 RFP remain unresolved. Mr. Chair, I was one of those security experts who conducted an assessment of vendor proposals during the 2014 internet voting RFP. I and my colleagues found that no proposal provided adequate protection against the risks of internet voting. On those grounds, we recommended in the staff report of the contract that the city not proceed. Council nevertheless voted to authorize the use of internet and telephone voting for advanced polls. Now, I watched the council debate that item and was troubled that the issue of cybersecurity received very little attention. I'm sure that you appreciate that the cybersecurity of internet voting systems is critically important to the democratic process. Year after year, members of my research community continue to discover vulnerabilities in electronic and internet voting systems in jurisdictions all around the world that would allow hackers to do things like prevent voters from voting, break ballot secrecy, and yes, even rig election outcomes. I myself will be presenting research in the United States on this very topic next week. And the Parliamentary Committee on Electoral Reform, in the report released this morning, has additionally recommended that online voting not be adopted at the federal level at this time. So, members of the committee, an overwhelming number of cybersecurity experts view internet voting as one of the most challenging open problems in security for a great many reasons. The good news is that Toronto has an excellent staff and is extremely knowledgeable and capable in this area. Their efforts in the 2014 RFP have received praise internationally, and the City Clerk's report contains an excellent analysis of the current situation. I urge you, therefore, to examine its findings and to make cybersecurity a priority in your decision in this matter. Thank you.
Any questions of the deputy? No, I actually have one. So we allowed advanced voting for the internet in the last municipal election?
No, I believe that did not proceed, but for reasons other than cybersecurity. So.
I see. And you're saying, so if we allow this, someone could rig the vote or get in there and...
Yes, yes. I mean, it's possible.
It's possible.
And a lot of research is being done internationally that supports that conclusion. And if we had more time, I could go through cases.
I see. All right. Yeah. Councillor Pasternak, yes.
Thank you, through you. Are you aware that when we debated online voting or internet voting in the last council, it was really to accommodate the disabled who could not physically make it to a polling station?
Yes.
It was a very narrow slice of the population.
I understand.
And the threshold to have that access was actually very high.
Well, I believe that the contract award involved authorizing the use of internet and telephone voting in advance polls for all electors, as I recall.
Well, the one we had debated and approved was for the disabled, and it was a very high threshold to actually get the online codes and vote. I'm wondering if you're familiar with what we approved.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. No further questions. Thank you very much. Alan Kaspersky from the Green Party of Toronto.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to address this item because at first blush, when I read through it, I was pretty disappointed. I was expecting direction. I was expecting ideas about how to rebuild democracy in Toronto, how to make elections better. But then understanding that this is an administrative body, I understand that they deal with how to run elections, not how to rebuild the trust in politicians in Toronto. So one of the things I'd like to suggest is that the mandate for Elections Toronto, or possibly a subcommittee, be created that would address items of democratic renewal. The province does it every 4 years after a municipal election cycle. They review the Municipal Election Act, they make recommendations, they take deputations, they make changes as appropriate. The federal government does it occasionally. We've seen it recently with the Multi-Party Committee on Democratic Renewal. Why do I suggest this that this is a priority? Because one of my favorite statistics when it comes to politics is that there hasn't been, since the days of Alan Lamport in the 50s, a politician, a city councillor, a mayor elected to Toronto with a majority of the vote. Not one member of council currently was elected with a majority of the vote in their ward. Why? And I'm seeing shaking heads because if you factor in the turnout, in the case of the mayor, for example, 72% of the people in Toronto did not vote for him, either because they voted against for somebody else or they just didn't bother to vote at all. Why? Because people don't believe that voting or participating makes any difference. They don't believe that coming to talk to city council or politicians makes a difference. So how do you rebuild that trust? I think you do anything and everything you can to get people back into politics. And that means ranked choice voting. That means mandatory voting. It means political parties at the municipal level. Hence the reason that we're sending a letter to the city clerk, asking her to institute a registration process for municipal political parties and to have us active in the next election in 2018. So I'd like the committee, the executive committee, to consider putting together some kind of a subcommittee of councillors, of members of the public, of interested parties that would advise council on ways to make politics better in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputy? No. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Miroslav Glavic.
Lavich. Thank you. Oh,
Careful.
I could have come around, you know. What was going to say? 3 minutes, right?
Yes?
Okay. I'm going to speak on the same part of the report about the first person deputy that came about the security. Nothing is 100% secure. That's a fact. Hold on. Your phones right now that you have with your at Toronto, those emails can be hacked. Your laptop, you know. If we do internet voting, most likely you're going to get in the mail your name, your voter ID, and a PIN number. If Councillor Ainsley gets out, his wife can take that paper, that PIN, and go vote for him. Or anybody can copy, intercept the mail before it gets to your mailbox. When I go across the street to go to Queen Street Station, there's a possibility that I get hit by a car. Nothing is 100% safe. Hold on, where is it? Oh crap! I need a new laptop. Just because we shouldn't use fear not to vote for this. Under AODA, the Accessibility Act for Ontarians with Disabilities, or something like that, could supersede this. People, seniors who have a mobility issue, or anybody with a mobility issue or disability, cannot go into the gym, into the, into the church, into whatever, vote. Internet voting, a lot of jurisdictions around the world do it. A lot of jurisdictions around the world don't sink into to the fear that things are going to get hacked. Your email address is at Toronto.ca can get hacked. You all still use it on a daily basis. We should have internet voting. You can all be in your bathrobes at home voting for yourselves. That's it. The end.
Next speaker is Shayla Duval. Is Shayla Duval here? No? Okay. We will take it into committee. Any question? Oh, pardon me, sorry. Missed you, Dave. Pardon me. How could we miss you?
I've done worse things to you in this chamber, Counselor. Let's call it even.
Oh, the meeting's not over yet.
Fair enough. Good evening, councilors and staff. Excited to be speaking once again about ranked ballots for Toronto. I originally was advocating for it for the 2010 election, and then for the 2014, and then for the 2018. I'm here to say that I agree with the staff report, that it's not viable for 2018. A lot of our supporters want us to push really hard and say, staff are lying, they can do it, they're just being lazy, but I'd like to agree with staff. They've been very generous with their time and offered me a tour of their warehouse and walked us through all the steps it would take to do the transition, and it is an enormous task. And Toronto would be the largest jurisdiction in North America to implement ranked ballots. So I'm conscious of how large a task it would be, and the last thing we want to see is ranked ballots implemented poorly and for there to be mistakes. So I want to compliment Bonita and her team on the staff report. That said, I don't think we need to throw this on the back burner. I think there's steps we can do now to make sure that we're prepared for 2022, because this decision will come back. And if you do the timeline walking backwards, if it takes, let's say, 2 or 3 years to implement it properly, and if you want to do 1 or 2 years of good consultation, we actually need to start pretty soon, even for 2022. So what I'd like to propose today is a citizens reference panel. It's an innovative idea that's being championed in Canada. It's being used by municipalities and provinces. What it does is it depoliticizes the process and takes power away from the activists and also away from politicians, and puts it in the hands of randomly selected citizens who go through a deliberative dialogue and education process, and they give a recommendation back to you, and it's still your call in the end, but it allows you to get a non-biased, non-activist, non-conflict of interest opinion from informed citizens. And it also opens the door to having a referendum on the recommendation of the Citizens' Assembly. So it goes through their process first, then to the people, and then back to you. I'll just finish off by saying that the entire state of Maine has just voted in favor of switching to ranked ballots. It's the biggest switch to ranked ballots we've seen in North America. The NDP will be having a leadership race this year using ranked ballots. The Conservative Party of Canada will be having a leadership race this year using ranked ballots, and it's time that the citizens of Toronto at least can see that you're taking steps towards opening the door and making sure that we know what the option is, that there's full consultation, and that we're not closing down opportunities. So I'm hoping someone will move a motion for a citizens reference panel. And if you want to know more about citizens reference panels, I brought a 2-minute video that I could show you, but I don't have time. But if you want to see it, you could ask me to show it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the deputant? Councillor Ainsley?
Mr. Muslin, did you say you have a 2-minute video? I would love to see a 2-minute video
No,
in the 3 minutes that I have to ask you questions.
Yeah, so
If
that's...
the chair is okay with
The
that.
chair, no, the chair doesn't interpret question time as the opportunity to show a video.
Fair enough.
Question time is
I challenge the chair.
Fair enough. Chair has been challenged. All those in favor of supporting the chair?
Oh, sorry.
Opposed? The chair is
Sorry,
upheld.
my bad.
Chair is upheld.
Paul, you're confusing us.
It's just that, people that ask, will you finish your comments?
No, it's okay.
I just don't believe that that's how the question time should be used. I've always believed that. Councillor McMahon?
Sure, thank you very much. That was a fantastic deputation. And great to know that you are supportive of staff and for the right reasons, because you toured the site, so you found out. So can you tell us a bit more about this panel and maybe what would have been in the video for us to see, like, how it works?
Yeah, it was pioneered first in British Columbia in 2004, and it's a really innovative idea, because what happens on any issue like this or many other issues is people become very polarized. So on the issue of ranked ballots, you have activists like me who will tell you that it's the best thing in the world, it'll transform our political culture and make everything more positive friendly, and you have others some on council who will tell you that it's a terrible idea and it'll destroy politics as we know it. And it's really important, I think, for you to be informed by citizens who aren't just coming at it from a partisan side. And what the citizens reference panels do is letters are mailed out to tens of thousands of citizens saying, would you want to participate as a volunteer in a comprehensive process where you'll come in, let's say, for 5 weekends in a row, and you'll hear from experts, you'll become educated, you'll become an expert, and then you'll go through public consultations where you'll hear from the Meslins and the Ticianos, and you'll hear both of those sides. And then you go through a facilitated deliberative process to give a unbiased, informed recommendation to council. They did that in 2004 on voting reform in British Columbia. We did it here in Ontario in 2007, both followed by a referendum. And 58% voted yes in the BC referendum. But now it's being used by municipalities all across Canada. Toronto's using it for the design review panel. The province of Ontario is using it all the time. It's a great, innovative way to take a complex issue and take it out of the hands of activists, but also out of the hands of councillors who, to be honest, are in a conflict of interest. I think some councillors would lose their jobs under a more fair voting system. And that's not my opinion. This is coming from councillors who have, behind closed doors, said to me, listen, Dave, I like you and I think your activism's great, but I think I would lose my job under your proposal, so I can't support it. So a citizens reference panel puts it in the hands of non-biased, informed citizens. And then it goes back to you. It's still up to council. So all the motion I'm asking for is asking staff to just report back on the feasibility and potential costs of a citizens reference panel. It doesn't commit you to anything. So I'd hope all the members of the committee would be open to that, just to get more information.
And so if we did that, what kind of time frame, like how long do you think that would go on for?
The panel itself?
Yeah.
That would depend on what type of budget council was willing to allocate.
Yeah, if we wanted.
The longest one I've seen is about half a year, the provincial ones, but there's other ones that have just been 2 or 3 weekends or even just one day. You wouldn't want it to be too elaborate because you want to make sure the citizens stay engaged, but you couldn't do it in a weekend. Like the whole point is to make sure that citizens really understand what is a ranked ballot and what are the different ways to use ranked ballots. There's groups in Toronto, such as Fair Vote Canada, that want to see us use ranked ballots in a multi-member district, in a proportional system. A citizens' assembly could look at that too.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Any further questions? No? We'll take it in the committee. Oh, I'm sorry. Questions of staff? Councillor Perks?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To the staff, I'm looking at the report on this. I'm looking at Appendix A, page 2 and 3, about third-party advertising. Am I correct in reading that the new Municipal Elections Act creates a category we don't currently have that allows somebody to register and put up their own election advertising during a municipal election?
Yes, that's correct.
And it can be a corporation, it can be a union, it can be an individual,
That's correct.
and they can raise their own money and they can advertise in multiple municipalities.
Yes.
And the province has yet to regulate any spending limit on that category.
There is going to be a spending limit. The Act indicates that, but the regulation prescribing how it will be calculated has not been passed yet.
And these third parties can advertise in favor of a candidate, against a candidate. They can state an opinion on a referendum question.
That's correct.
So, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I vote against sign variances. The sign companies could form the Free Speech Coalition and put out advertising saying, Councillor Gord Perks is against free speech, vote against him.
They could.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Pasternak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Questions for staff. On page 6 of the report, there's a reference to the clerk reviewing every financial statement and identify and report to the Compliance Audit Committee any contributors that exceed the maximum contribution limits. Now, are you only focusing on that line, those line items of the financial statements, or are you bringing in accountants to review the entire financial statements of the 400-plus candidates that run for office?
It's simply the contributions and the expenses.
So, if my memory is correct, there's about a $5,000 limit, total limit, and you can spread that among several candidates. You're just looking to make sure that people do not exceed the $5,000.
Yes, or the limit for individual candidates. So a contributor has a limit on the amount they can contribute to individuals and also a total limit.
Now, if you see something also at odds within the statement in your contributors' review, are you legally obligated to report that to the Compliance Audit Committee?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
If in your review of contributor totals, you spot something else that doesn't balance, are you legally obligated to report that to the Compliance Audit Committee?
I wouldn't want to answer that out of context. It would really depend on the circumstances.
Well,
But there's a clear obligation to report any instances where the contribution exceeds the limit and expenses exceed the limit.
so if we're hiring third-party accountants to review these financial statements, could we have scope creep where they're actually taking extra time to do some kind of micro audit or third-party audit of the financial statements?
I can't speak to that. I'm actually not even able to confirm that third-party auditors will be hired at this point. I don't want to speak for the clerk, but I don't believe that decision has been made yet.
I don't think until we see some of the financial filings, Mr. Chair, that we can answer that question. It's very contextual. It depends on the circumstances that we find. And, you know, for example, if we needed to determine related companies, that's a definition under the Income Tax Act that's exceedingly complicated. If we find some of those, we may need accounting help. But I can't really tell you what we may find.
Right, so you'll be reporting back as the regulations under the legislation become public? I assume that'll be
No.
in our information packages to candidates.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsley?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the city clerk, on the report, it's a 17-page report on changes to the Municipal Election Act. There's a paragraph entitled Rules Regulating Third-Party Advertising, and it says a framework to regulate third-party advertisers, including contribution and spending limits, has been established. Where would we find that? It says it comes into effect on April 1st, 2018.
It's in the Municipal Elections Act in various sections, and we are also waiting for a regulation with respect to the forms, the financial filings, and the spending limits.
Okay, and for third-party advertisers, for example, that spending limit's been set?
No, it hasn't. We understand it will be a per elector amount, but we don't know what that amount will be.
Okay, and that was, in the previous election, did we have a spending limit for third-party advertisers?
There was no framework in the previous legislation.
Okay, and so now we have one, and it's going to be per elector. How does that get enforced? So if I have a group that comes together and says we represent all the commercial property owners in Toronto, how do we determine how much money they're spending?
The clerk, similar to a candidate, when the third party comes in to register, we will provide them with that maximum spending limit, and it will be based on a per elector.
Okay, is there somebody, so for third-party advertising, if some coalition or citizens group decides not to come in and register, and they go into third-party advertising, is that looked at on a complaint basis? If I, as a candidate, somebody's doing third-party advertising in my ward, I call the clerk and say, hey, there's a plethora of newspaper ads in the Scarborough Mirror for some citizens coalition. How does that get dealt with?
So the Act does say that municipalities can require the removal of advertising that does not comply with the Act. However, it doesn't go into any detail beyond that, so we would have to look at how the city could do that and how we would implement it.
Okay, so I guess the issue for me, not so much as a councillor, but as a candidate, somebody doesn't register, they do their third-party advertising, it's in the Scarborough Mirror, it's already gone out to every household in my ward, and I file a complaint. The damage is done, correct?
Yes. I agree.
And what are the enforcement measures after? The city then tries to hunt them, whatever this group is, after the election?
Mr. Chair, we have not had discussions yet with MLS. We're going to have to try to interpret this very vague section as best as we can and have those discussions with respect to what they could or could not potentially do with that.
I do want to be clear, though, that that the actions that you've described, Councillor, would be a violation of the legislation, and the legislation has an all-encompassing offense provision. So whoever was responsible for this advertising that does not comply with the statute would be committing an offense, so there would be an opportunity to prosecute.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Further questions? No?
Absolutely.
Councillor Palacio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the clerk, in terms of the ranked ballots, so I have actually a few questions, but the first one is, hypothetically speaking, if this was to be passed, this would apply to the office of the mayor and members of council.
Yes, that's correct. It would not apply to school trustees.
So for school trustees, I'm just trying to think about the ballot and the complexity of it the way it is. Think about for a second for the mayor. I don't remember how many candidates we had, whatever number it was, plus members of council and trustees. I'm just trying to understand how the layout and what kind of balloting would be needed.
Well, again, it's difficult to answer that question in the abstract, but in the last election, if you can think back, we had 65 candidates on the ballot for mayor, and in some of our wards, we had, I think the maximum was 22 councillor candidates. So the ballots would obviously be very complex, they'd be very lengthy, depending on what is available with the vote counting equipment. It might help determine the ballot layout, but it's going to be very important to make them accessible. So we have that responsibility. It will be a very lengthy ballot if we continue to have an increase in the number of candidates as we've had in other elections. And of course, the school trustees would continue to be elected first past the post.
So on that alone, even though that I can see a lot of merits on the ranked ballot, but also I want to have a fair understanding when I'm dealing with an aging population, when I'm dealing with the multicultural aspect and the very language and whatever else that we have in our local communities. By trying to focus and to understand the system, whatever, if that's implemented, do you have the capabilities at this point to implement that? And if so, what do you need to get to that point to make sure that we are going to have something that's going to create a win-win in every way?
I think what's essential, Councillor, is time. It's going to take a lot of time to go out into our very diverse community to explain this very complex system of algorithms and how choices are made and how choices are counted on these ballots. And I think that's why the legislation requires extensive public outreach and education before council adopts the bylaw.
Do you recommend what's being proposed at the moment?
We do not recommend that we try to do this before 2018. We do not believe there's sufficient time to have an adequate campaign in the public domain to have these discussions and do this properly. Remember that we will require new equipment in order to do this.
In terms of cost, what would be the, do you have?
Sorry, you're
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
finished. Any further questions? Speakers? Yep. Councillor Ainsley, anyone else? Oh, Councillor Perks, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Perks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So if you were listening to the answers that staff gave on this new third-party advertising campaign, you should be horrified. This will be the single biggest setback to fair and free elections in the City of Toronto in living memory. Effectively, an unlimited number of corporations, private individuals, or unions can register in whatever ward they want and put up advertising or election signs saying, don't vote for that councillor, or don't vote for that challenger, or vote against this or that referendum question. We spent years getting corporate and union money out of Toronto politics. We've spent years establishing a fair and transparent auditing system. This brings dark money into Toronto politics. It's super PACs for local elections. We absolutely have to do everything we can as a government to prevent this from destroying fair and free elections here in the City of Toronto. Now, the province has said we can't opt out, but we have fought provincial regulations that we were not happy with before. I'm not going to suggest anything right here, but we all have to turn our minds to this very important question before the council meeting. Elections shouldn't be for sale in the City of Toronto. We must stop this from happening.
All right. Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm moving the following motion that City Council requests the City Clerk to report to the January 19th, 2017 meeting of the Executive Committee on the viability of creating a randomly selected citizens reference panel to explore the potential benefits and disadvantages of using ranked ballots in future municipal elections. I think everybody's read the report here. The timelines, unfortunately for us, we were unable to use ranked ballots in the 2018 municipal election. We've debated this a number of times on the floor of council. Last term, the majority of councillors voted in favor of ranked ballots. I think it's important to move this forward. I think it's important to make sure that residents in the City of Toronto feel that their vote is accounted for, whether they vote for the person that has the majority of the first pass of people on the ballot or their second or third choice. Secondly, I also want to follow up on the comments that I raised earlier about third-party advertising in the report. Third-party advertising, it's a nice, polite phrase. If you have followed any of the elections, and I think almost everybody in this room has, that took place just recently in the United States, they refer to third-party advertising as dark money. Advertisements flood a race. Voters don't know who bought them. They don't know why. We're looking at a process where we would expect third-party advertisers to register with the City of Toronto. They're under no real obligation other than there's a legal penalty after the election, but you have to find that person or group that actually put out the third-party advertising. As I said, if you put an ad in the local newspaper, the damage is done. I think, a number of our colleagues have had experience of people running against them or ghost candidates or putting ads in the paper. But you could look, there's instances in the States, most recently in Arizona, a third-party group spent almost $30 million trying to get two candidates off of their utility commission, which was 100 times the amount of third-party or advertising or dark money that had been spent in the previous election. So I think this is a huge issue. I think we all need to be aware of it. They always talk about, we're not like the United States, but, if there is an organization that doesn't like the way you voted or how you voted, this is going to be a distinct danger. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Pasternak.
I think it's through you to the clerk. Council has already spoken on this issue regarding Councillor Ainsley's motion. Is this in order? Can we override a council decision?
This is for the creation of a citizen reference panel, which would be different from to explore. Well,
Council has voted on ranked ballots
so
less than a year ago.
So it's distinguished by asking the province for this authority rather than having a citizens' reps groups. I would encourage if you feel that way, I would encourage you to vote against the motion.
I'm just asking whether it's in order.
All right, and there's been change. So the clerk's office says it's properly in order. I would say that you vote the way you'd like.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that. All right. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank staff, clerks, for all their work on this, and especially for coming around, taking the time while doing the presentations for all of us, because I'm a big supporter of ranked ballots, but boy, I didn't realize how complicated it actually is until clerks came around with their Minneapolis spreadsheet and their ballots and whatnot. But I do think we need to try and figure out how to level the playing field more. So whether that's ranked ballots in 2022, there's such an edge to incumbency, as we know. I'd like to thank Dave Meslin and Rabbit for their tireless efforts and years and years and years of work. And I have to say, Mr. Meslin is one of our most polite activists in the City of Toronto. He totally gets that you catch more flies with honey, and he works with everyone. Happy to support Councillor Ainsley's motion on the reference panel. It's the right thing to do, and hopefully we can see what can happen in 2022. But if ranked ballots isn't an option due to the complexities, we'll see. But if it's not, we always have the option of term limits, which is a fantastic way to ensure a refresh in council and that you get that there's not the edge of incumbency, and you can diversify council, bring in youth, and bring in more women with a level playing field. I agree with Councillor Perks on the signs, but I would take that one step further and say that we should look at literature as well. I know some unions, teachers' unions for sure, in previous elections sends out pamphlets, flyers advising their teachers who to vote for. So to me, that's kind of one step away from the sign. They're telling who to vote for mayor, who to vote for councillor and trustee, and I feel that's part and parcel the same way as the signs, just not a billboard, but at your door. So we should look at that as well. Thanks.
Anybody else? Councillor Shiner.
Oh, I get to turn it on myself today.
Apparently.
So, through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm not a supporter of the motion. And Councillor Ainsley, I'm not a supporter of ranked ballots. As much as people have lobbied it here, and it's difficult for some to understand, it's more difficult, in my opinion, for the public to understand. They like to know who they are voting for, and they like to know who's elected, and I think the current system works. I don't think going out to get a citizens panel on something that Council has already said they're not supportive of is the right way to go. It just gets people to think about something that, and even come back with recommendations against something that Council has not been supportive of. And then it goes back to who supports the citizen members in the panel, because it all depends who's in the panel with what their opinion might be. Because very often they come to it in advance and not knowing what they'd like to see, and then they come back with recommendations on that. I don't think ranked ballots is the way to go. I think that the current system works. I know that there are some colleagues that come in and they may not have an overwhelming majority of people in the ward because there's multiple candidates, but that's what allowed. And very often candidates get onto a list just to see what if. And many people don't even know who they are. So you're asking people that may be on a list of 4, 5, or 6 candidates that haven't spent their time canvassing, haven't gone door to door, and haven't even put out any information, may actually get votes from people because they have to pick someone on the list or feel they have to on the ranked list of who's there. It's not how you want to be voting. You want to vote for the person that you know you either support because you think they can do the good job representing you, or vote for someone against that person because you feel someone else can do the job better. That's the way our system runs, and that's the system I support.
Okay. Excuse me. Anybody else? No, I'm just going to say I agree with Councillor Shiner on the ranked ballot issue. Councilors decide this issue. I'm lucky enough that in each of my elections I've gotten more than 50% of the vote, so it would never have affected any of the outcomes in my ward. But I think my constituents like the way it is, I don't support proportional representation, and neither does council. So I think we just leave it as it is. Hats off to Mr. Meslin by trying to, keep this going. But as Councillor Shiner said, council's already taken this decision, and why give it more oxygen when it's just going to come back and the outcome being the same. Anyway, we're going to take the vote. The City Council requests City Clerk to report in January on the viability of creating a randomly selected citizens reference panel, etc. All those in favor? All those opposed?
That's for recorded.
Oh, sorry, pardon me. All those in favor, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Bilow, Councillor McMahon. All those opposed? Councillor Crawford, Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Shiner, and Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong. That loses. Sorry, I missed you there. Councillor Palacio. Still loses. All right, item is amended. Anything else? Is that it? Item is amended. All those in favor? No amendment? Ah, right. Thank you. The item. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All righty. Feasibility of an e-petition program. Miroslav Glavich.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to assume you all read the report and still remember it from last night. Let's see, where is it? One of the most famous e-petition sites is the American White House. And at first you had to have 25,000 signatures for the White House to respond. And somebody made a petition that says, please build the Death Star, Star Wars. They actually got it. Problem with e-petitions, it can be open to abuse like that. I could make a petition that says, Councillor Ainsley come in a purple tutu on city council meetings. Or Councillor Shiner in a tutu. There's a part that says there will be a capital cost of between $200,000 and $300,000 to make an e-petition site. I did e-petition sites when I was in high school, okay? And still to this day, there's no chance $300,000 for a website. That's abusive. And if any of you vote to spend $300,000 for an e-petition website, I hope you don't get elected in 2018 and you go work at McDonald's. There's a lot better things to spend $300,000. There's no there's no possibility that it costs that. An e-petition website can be done for $5,000, and you can hire a teenager in your ward that can do it. I seen them do it. I done them when I was 15, 20 years ago. The easiest way is for councilors, Ainsley, Bailao, Crawford, McMahon, and the rest of you that have websites, put a poll on the right side, on the sidebar of your own websites that you all have, except Councilor Shiner, which you should get a nice, pretty website. Then it's not pretty. Sorry. I know. Everybody's pretty. But $300,000. If you spend on this, you know Rob Ford's lightning bolts are going to come out of the sky. Please don't vote for this. Cheaper ways to do. I don't know. I would love to know whichever staff wrote this report, with all due respect, how did you get to $200,000 or $300,000? Sometime between now and the end of time, please tell me, because there's no way. And I have done websites like this, so I know exactly how much it costs. You know, and there's no way.
Any questions of the deputy?
Oops.
Seeing none, thank you. Questions of staff? No. Speakers. Councillor Ainsley?
I have an amendment to the report that I would like to move.
Alrighty.
Or an amendment to the recommendations that I would like to move.
Okay.
Sorry, it's on the screen. That the petition rules and the council procedures, Executive Committee refer the item to the City Clerk with a request that she report on the alternatives described in the report, under which the petition rules and the council procedures will be updated to better recognize petitions and in communications received from third-party petition platforms, and the City Clerk would publish guidelines for petition organizers, setting out minimum guidelines for accepting petitions from these sites. So we all know what happens. Somebody hands you a petition, it's collected in your community, you bring it into City Council, you move it on the floor of Council here. So this is much similar to that vein. I'm not expecting, I'm not hoping, I'm not desiring, I'm not asking that anybody in the City Clerk's office spends $200,000 or $300,000 creating a website. There's lots of different petition websites out there that your residents can use if they want a 30-kilometer speed limit, if they want a new playground. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do an e-petition and make sure it gets sent to a councillor and to be put forward. This is just trying to make the system a little more open and transparent to engage our residents to get a petition. I'm not looking for a petition process and this is only for items that are on an agenda or before City Council. The purpose of this isn't for residents to collect a petition, go out and force something to end up on a standing committee or the City Council agenda. It's simply to support things that are already before us on a standing committee or City Council. So I ask for everybody's support on this so the clerks can look at this in a little more fulsome manner. Thank you.
Alrighty. Is it to speak or questions? Questions? Councillor McMahon?
Thank you. So I'm glad you said that, Councillor Ainsley, that it's not for, creating people's own agenda items type thing, and it's for things like speed bumps or traffic calming measures, things like that. So what I find now with the petitions is, so people are just collecting, you ask them to do a petition on their street, but they just collect a positive results instead of, were you thinking more like, every address, so what the response was at each address, so positive and negative, so you can ensure that they've spoken to everyone on the street type thing?
Yes, and
Okay.
one of the other things that you have neighbors that go out, and so, for example, I have an area in my ward, they would all like the speed limit reduced to 30 kilometers. I don't have time to go door to door to hand out go to door and try and get people to sign the petition. Others don't want their city councilor knocking at a door either. They don't want their neighbors knocking on a door. And, everybody leads busy lives. If you can point to something and say, go to change.org, for example, or one of the other numerous electronic petition websites, people can format their own petition and put it forward. There was an example, Go Transit on Lakeshore East last year. There was an issue around GO Train service. There was one of the riders created an online petition, which eventually got to Metrolinx that had over 300,000 people sign it. So, it's a much easier, more proactive way than our traditional pen and paper petition system. It's used very widely. It's used in House of Commons, Queen's Park's looking at it, and I think it's something we should be looking at as a municipal government.
So I would agree with you, although I do like people to get out and meet their neighbors and not just hang out in their basements on their computer all day.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that the petition would have, so you could not verify, but people would have to put in their name, their address, and some sort of identifier that, so we didn't know, I'm putting, say we're doing it in my house, we're signing something, I'm putting, Jim McMahon, Mary Margaret McMahon, Liam McMahon, Becca McMahon, and my dog, Lucy McMahon. I'm not, there has to be some sort of qualifier, because we know what happens on Facebook and other social media. Things get out of control, and there's anonymity and one person with multiple Twitter handles or identities on Facebook. So just trying to see that
I agree
would
with
be
you completely. If you go,
placed.
as I said, there's numerous petition websites, and there's a number of different mechanisms where you have to log in or verify who you are, that that you're not a bot, as they call it, a computer that's going to churn through 25,000 people. There's addresses, there's email addresses. There's also mechanisms you can submit a petition in various formats. You have one neighbor going out and knocking on doors, and another neighbor can be filing it electronically and going out and saying, go to this website and file it electronically.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Councillor Palacio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Ainsley, is that, I'm just trying to figure out what would be the best way of dealing with this. I can see some merit on what you're trying to do, but on the other hand, is when you have an aging population out there, when you have a language barrier out there, not everybody has the option of using an electronic device to do this. So in situations where you have communities or neighborhoods that they would like to petition either their city council or whoever else, they usually do it on paper. They go door to door. As you did mention when you spoke that very often members of council go door to door. I don't. I get petitions from residents on issues that are important to them without influencing them. How do you feel about this?
Sorry. Well, to address your first comment, if you go to Google, for example, there's a plethora of different online translation tools. If it's in English and you want to translate it,
if they don't have computers.
Sorry.
A lot of people don't have computers. They don't know how to use it.
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned to our colleague Councillor McMahon a few moments ago, if you have a residence group that's trying to achieve something in your community, stop sign, playgrounds, speed bumps, traffic calming, whatever it is, you can also have an e-petition, but our procedures and our guidelines, and also, this motion, I'm asking the clerk to look at it, it doesn't restrict a petition to electronic. You will still be able to do the traditional pen and paper petition if that's what you have a residence group that wants to do. Some jurisdictions, they do both. As Councillor McMahon mentioned earlier, there's a number of mechanisms to prevent fraud, But even with a pen and paper petition, I've had instances where I've had a petition submitted to me, and when you go back as a counselor to look at the addresses, you find out they've gone to a local apartment building, and they've just written everybody's name down on the signboard in the lobby, and, you know, there's loopholes in any type of petition.
I think we get in same right now, very often we get petitions on paper or electronic ones as well.
Sorry?
Don't we? We're getting, at this point, I do get petitions online.
Yep.
And for that matter, actually, on my website, I have that, I give people that choice.
Yep.
Or I do get petitions in paper as well. So people have choices.
Yep.
Why do we have to impose something else that's going to be a little bit, probably, in my opinion, a bit confusing to them?
That's the last question.
So what we're doing is you're giving people another choice, making it easier, more open and transparent to engage and make sure you as a councillor know what's happening in a community or what your residents desire in a community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Speakers? Councillor Shiner? Anyone? Any other speakers? Okay. Councillor Shiner?
Deputy Mayor, petitions can often be an interesting tool when people bring them in and they're stacked up on your table, or you talk about the number of people that are on it. But we all know that petitions don't really express the interest of all the people that are there. I was asked to help someone out in a young company the other day, and there was an online petition, what do you like best? So I went online and I signed up and I voted. And then I went back online and I signed up and I voted. And I went back online and I signed up and I voted because I had different email addresses. So I was able to help them a lot by getting a lot of votes in for them. And that's with all the safeguards that you have, a visit, a robot, whatever. And I'll tell you, when I was first elected, it was interesting when you have petitions, because I had someone come to me, there was a street and it was near one of our colleges and the students were parking, so there was a petition taken around door to door. And the fellow came to me because his wife had signed the petition, but he worked shifts and he parked on the street when he came home so people could get out of his driveway, and he was very upset that the petition from the residents on the street supported the restrictions. And his wife had signed it. And then she went out and she took the same petition out because he asked her to, and got all the same people to sign against the restrictions. So I had two petitions from the same people because their neighbor knocked on the door or someone asked them to sign up for it. The petition isn't really the meaning of what people care for. When I have issues like that, I go out and I actually write out to my residents. I give them a form with questions to answer. I ask them to sign it and send it back to me, and if I don't get enough responses, I'll write out to the people that haven't, and I'll say, again, I'd like to know what you're thinking, and I'll ask them to get their input in the area. Issues that are of importance, I try and keep on a website so people are aware of it, and as much as I like Miroslav's comments, Miroslav, there's no way I'm going to support a petition to have me show up in a tutu, because that just wouldn't be good for anyone. I don't think anyone would like that at all, and that's my best public interest I could do. But all the issues that are of concern and the ability to find out what people really think isn't there in a petition, and to go out and spend $200,000 or $300,000 to run a site to have petitions, I don't support. Even to look at the options to it, and I appreciate what Councillor Ainsley's trying to do, I don't support. If this motion of Councillor Ainsley's doesn't pass, I would just move a motion to defer indefinitely the item. I just don't support the issue of having us do electronic petitions. I think there's lots of avenues out in the internet and lots of smart people that find ways to have sites where you can set up a petition and send it on, that we don't have to be sending taxpayers money for it. You are concerned it, do a petition, send it to us. It's important for us to see, but I wouldn't spend taxpayers' money on it. I don't want to spend any more staff time as well looking at how you deal with petitions.
All right. Anybody else? No? We have a motion? Referral motion. All those in favor of the referral motion? Opposed? That does not carry. We have the recommendations in the report. Oh, pardon me. We had the motion to defer indefinitely. All those in favor? Recorded vote. All those in favor of deferring indefinitely. Councillor Crawford, Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Shiner, Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong. All those opposed? Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Bilow, Councillor McMahon, and Mayor Tory. I believe that vote carries. Yes. Closely, but it does carry. All right, that matter's been dealt with. We're now going to move on to 20.10. This is the Poverty Reduction Strategy Progress Report. We have 32 deputants. We're going to start this process. I'm going to call out the first, I'll call out the first 5 speakers just so you know where you are, so you can, you're all going to come up to the microphone there, but if you can start to assemble yourself so we can move along, because the evening's getting late and we have so many speakers. So the first speaker is Ellis Ziegler from the Toronto Drop-In Network, then Leona Lowe's from the Friends Helping People in Poverty, then Michael Rosenberg, then Jessica Bell, and then Tim Rourke. All righty? And welcome. You have 3 minutes. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Good evening now, I guess.
Let's just hope it doesn't get to good morning.
Sorry?
Let's just hope it doesn't get to good morning.
Yeah. Thank you for hearing me this evening and to listen to all the deputants today and maybe tomorrow. I'm here as the manager of the Toronto Drop-In Network, which supports 55 drop-ins across the city. Those drop-ins are tasked with helping the people our system has failed. Those people are youth, seniors, men, women, transgender, and people with disabilities. Those people are living in poverty because they don't have enough income, whether it's employment or fixed income. Those are people who can't find housing, can't afford housing, or the housing they provide doesn't provide the simplest things like living in privacy or cooking a meal. Those thousands are helped daily in drop-ins funded by donations and our tax dollars. I'm here today to talk about the poverty reduction strategy you all support, and one part in particular, which is transit equity. TDIN, along with Young Parents No Fixed Address, Metro Toronto Movement for Literacy, and LGBTQ Service Providers Network, over 130 agencies, want Council to address transit equity in a real and cost savings way, particularly in light of the elimination of tokens, which TTC is implementing. What I'm asking you to do, in addition with others, is to do the right thing, to provide free and unlimited transit passes to people with fixed and no income, and to listen to the 3 reasons why. 1, you already have all the evidence that it's the right thing to do. In 2013, you paid for a transit and health equity study which showed transit support pays dividends in better health for people living in poverty. In 2015, all of you approved a poverty reduction strategy, also backed by evidence, which said that more money has to be spent to improve the lives of people living in poverty. Just last week, the Fair Pass report, being tabled today, outlines the needs and benefits of improved transit equity. Toronto, for all its wealth, has a third of its children living in poverty. You don't need to pay for one more report, study, or consultation. You just have to do the right thing. 2, you'll save money in the long run. Toronto experts just released the results of research which shows that the cost of poverty runs in the billions of dollars we are already spending on the symptoms of poverty, but nothing to reduce the cause. Lack of funds in the hands of those living in poverty. At least 4 of your city's divisions spend millions of dollars providing tokens or contracting community-based agencies to do so. Shelter Support and Housing Administration alone spends $1.49 million in token support last year. If you add that amount to the amount spent by Toronto Public Health, Social Development and Finance Administration, Children's Services, Parks, Forest and Recreation, and Employment and Social Services, those funds could go directly to the people who need transit equity without costing more. You don't need a complicated system. You just need to do the right thing. The city needs to follow policies that work for everyone's benefit. Toronto needs to stop treating its residents and children who live in poverty like second-class citizens.
Thank you.
Toronto can join, pardon?
That's your 3 minutes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have questions? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Leona Lowe's. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the constitutive members. My name is Leona, and I'm a tenant of a 285 shooter. I live in Ward 28. I'm speaking for a group of friends helping people to end poverty. We support each other and try to help try to help the city to understand there are a lot of things that need to be done. Considering, I would like to support the fair pass, but I would like to see it start for this coming year. It's taken a long time to get there, and people have already waited too long. This decision, we're all excited to see this happen. I would like to see a low fare so I can go to the places I need to go. I like the idea of a discount for single trips, as I do use the TTC every day, but I do depend on it. I like to go to social events. My favorite is Apple Grove. The city's senior program that I pay $20 a month for, but I only go twice a month. If the TTC fare were more reasonable, I could go more. The one senior couple in our group says we can't pay more, we need low fare. People have to pay $3 for a ride on Will Transit, $2 if you're a senior. It takes me 3 hours to walk to church instead of the few minutes by bus. My legs are not very good anymore, and I have to walk with my wife to support or with a cane. If the senior single fare went from $2 to $1, we could use the TTC more, not just for church, but also to go to Toronto Island more or other places that we like to enjoy. Other members of our group works. He says this is the 6th year in a low rate, the low and Metro Pass that has gone up. It will now be $146. That's a lot of money. The 21% Metro Pass has gone up. It will be for $146, okay. Discount. And 2018, for people on OW and ODSP is a good start, but it could be bigger. And could you please put it in this year's budget, please? We ask you to consider the consequences if you don't agree with the fare pass problems. Think about the health costs and the increase of crime rate, and depression and other mental health issues can go up when people feel more isolated. The cost of spending money on those issues will be bigger than the money spent on poverty reduction. I'm very passionate about my city and I live in it. I'm glad we have a good service in Toronto in many ways. It is very good for our considered a low cost for people who are living on low income.
Thank you very much. No question? Any questions? No. Michael Rosenberg. Right.
Okay, so the poverty reduction strategy should be thought of in a much broader sense. It's not just a certain segment of the population that regards themselves or is regarded as poor. It's everybody who's having difficulties with affordability, and that basically we're all doing a lot less well off than we were in the past. So this doesn't have to be seen as a narrow issue. There are a lot of things that need to be done to make sure that people are not going to continuously be worse and worse off, to make sure that we don't have an economy that gets worse and worse. And if we look at this poverty reduction strategy as basically a part of that overall problem of trying to fix the reasons that people are finding it very unaffordable to continue and that their standard of living is lower than it used to be. If we see it that way, I think we would come up with a different type of poverty reduction strategy. I mean, obviously, much of it would still remain the same, but I think there would be some differences. A lot of the text in the report really doesn't reflect the point of view that I think a lot of people see it in terms of how this affects more than just a small segment of the population. And I think if we did see it as something that was much broader, we might include different types of actions in the poverty reduction strategy, one of which that I have previously mentioned is that job descriptions in the City of Toronto should reduce the need for unnecessary educational qualifications. I think those kinds of policies that would address the economy and would help a much broader range of people would put a different type of spin on what we call poverty reduction and would actually be much more effective because those things are really getting at the real causes of the problem and could really improve the situation, both for people who are actually extremely poor and for just all of the people in the middle who are just not doing very well. So there is a different type of approach of what we see as the problem. And we do have to see that a lot of the knowledge-based and technology systems are actually unproductive and have led to these kinds of problems. And if we could use less of those types of systems, we would actually have a stronger economy for a lot more people. And you know, in terms of the city's own decision-making, you know, you often talk about technology, and you sometimes talk about it as if you're quite sure that it's going to save money and make things more efficient, and then you often find out that it actually costs more money and makes things less efficient. So it's just important to think about that and how that affects everybody and how that will make us less poor if we have less technology rather than the other way around. And those kinds of decisions are the kinds of things that really could improve the economy once we understand what the resource issues are, what the problems of technology are. That's a good way to actually deal with the poverty problem. And just on the TTC, I will just say that my biggest concern is the elimination of single-use fares. Although there have been some proposals to make them available to some organizations, I have to point out that I actually give out thousands of tokens myself to groups, and that these are not groups that would in any way qualify as a social service agency. So I think the new single-use fares have to be available to anybody who has purchased them in units of at least 50 at a time. They have to be broadly available to the public. It's not just a poverty issue. In fact, it also relates to businesses that give them to their customers and just a whole variety of people who use them for a whole variety of reasons. So that ability to have single-use fares at the non-cash price has to continue for everybody who needs to do that or wants to do that. It's not just for poverty agencies who need to do that. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much. Jessica Bell?
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to use my minutes very quickly. The first thing is, I'm with the Fair Fare Coalition. We are in support of this recommendation today. We are requesting that the discounts are deeper, the rollout is faster, it includes more people, and there is an elimination of the $13 to $15 replacement charge if you lose your low-income pass. And finally, we want this pass to be paid through general revenue. We do not want it to be paid by eliminating the seniors and the student discount, which was something that was being mused about. Second, I want to read out the Ontario Chinese Seniors Association's deputation to you because they could not come today. They're very disappointed that the report does not do anything for low-income seniors because TTS affordability is a big issue for their group. They would like to remind you that Mayor Tory announced he wanted to put $2.2 million into the budget to launch a pilot project to provide senior citizens with transportation so they can get to appointments, access services, and participate in community events. And they would like to see that commitment be directed towards lowering seniors' fares even further. And the second point I'd like to make is that the current seniors discount is not, it's good for all seniors, but it's not good enough for low-income seniors that need a bigger discount to get around. They ask that you look to Calgary, which has a low-income seniors yearly pass for $15 a year as a measure of what is truly needed to get low-income seniors around in the city. And then finally, I'd like to hand it to Daniela, who'd like to say a few words too. This is point 3.
Oh, hello. Hi, my name is Daniela McGart, and I'm also a member of the Fair Fare Coalition, have been since its inception. I just want to speak to council. I wanted to ask you, first of all, thank you for the deputation, being able to depute. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to be a senior soon. I'm vastly approaching that age. And on assistance. And Pam, you know me, and you know my situation with housing, what's going on. Housing being such a big issue of affordability, I'm paying market rent. I spent the last 2 weeks $40. I'm only putting in $2, okay, honestly, but $40 in the last 2 weeks traveling from appointment to appointment. I really try to give back in a big way. I know a number of people on this committee, and by doing community service, and I represent many people for several social service agencies like Sistering, Voices from the Street, Working for Change, HouseLink. And I love my city, I love my community. Too bad Mike Layton isn't here, who's my counselor. And I'm urging you guys to really look at this. It's a real problem. Please make TCC affordable, and we really can't wait anymore. It is horrendous what's going on with housing, and I will leave it at that for now. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? All right. The next speakers are, there's Tim Rourke, who's next. And then after Tim is Sean Mayer, Tina Shapiro, Derek George, and Jameel Moore. All right, Mr. Rourke, welcome.
Yeah, hi. Okay. So I get 3 minutes at this. My 3 minutes start.
Already started.
Oh, come on, you.
We're waiting.
3 minutes start right now. Okay, now, haven't been too interested in local politics lately. And getting more interested. Deterioration of local governments ever since the amalgamation is starting to reach its crisis point now. Transit is most affected. It's the first thing that's starting to break down. Constant fare increases and deteriorating service in order to subsidize official incompetence. Nice water. I'm much affected by that. So, I'm not as able to move around as I used to be. Especially hard as I'm getting more physically disabled, as you can tell. Been hanging around the fair crowd lately. They're fairly baffled about what to do about you people and your sort of offer, your I guess, from what I hear, it's going likely to pass. They don't, they're not even really sure if it'll pass. It makes a little difference one way or the other if it passes. But the plan is rather brilliant in a way. It's designed, it's cunning. It's designed to concede nothing really of substance while dividing support for fair rollbacks. Hand it to hard for the fares to respond to a divide and conquer thing like that. It divides the low-income people and disabled against seniors and students. Divides both against those who would who are paying full fares and will have to pay more. And the worst thing is, there's no clear indication about how low-income people would even get vetted for the pass. But we can sort of imagine that something as degrading and inconvenient as possible. So my feeling, pass or not, who cares, shit really hits the fan next year. Whole world is moving to eliminate transit fares altogether. Austerian creeps are in control of what was once a... Oh, my cell phone isn't... Come here, what was once a relatively progressive-minded city is now going in the opposite direction. Very shameful. Public is finally starting to wake up just a bit and start to mobilize seriously against all this kind of thing. There's talk about, oh...
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Great. Any questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sean Mayor?
No questions? Oh, dear. No one wants to hear my wisdom? Okay, bye-bye.
Good evening. My name's Sean Maher. I work at the Social Planning Council, and I want to commend Council for having unanimously passed the poverty reduction strategy a year ago, November 3rd. A lot of people in this room worked very hard to make that happen, residents, staff, members of Council, and they all deserve a big vote of thanks, not just because they're contributing to the well-being of vulnerable people, but also because they're improving outcomes for the city. That's not according to me or to activists who are in this room, but according to the Board of Trade and to civic leaders who are primarily focused on economic analyses, and there's a good reason for that. On Monday, we released this study to show the impacts of poverty on the bottom line. Costs like added health care, higher justice costs, lost income taxes, leaving people living in poverty costs us $5.5 billion every year. And it's easy for municipal councillors to say, well, those aren't municipal costs. Those are savings that accrue to the federal government or to the provincial government. But in fact, the same benefits accrue at the municipal level. It isn't that long ago that the at-home Chez Soi study showed that it costs us $16,000 a year for every person we leave on the street instead of putting them in the supportive and affordable housing that they need. This is fiscally incomprehensible behavior for us as a city. And today we're looking at the progress we've made on a plan to try and move us away from that fiscally incomprehensible behavior. We're looking at last year's poverty reduction strategy and the plan for next year's. And last year there were significant efforts made to adjust the infrastructure for managing poverty reduction at City Hall. There was good work done on policy development and strong initiatives on creating incentives for critical actions, and those were valuable things to do. But we also have to recognize that significant growth in frontline services will be absolutely critical to poverty reduction. We need to build a lot of housing. Our city's own plans call for 10,000 units of supportive housing and 70,000 units of affordable housing and 120,000 housing repairs. We are not adding housing at anything like the rate to meet those targets in 20 years. We need 17,000 childcare subsidies to meet the current demand. So each year in a 20-year plan, we need almost 1,000 subsidies. This year's target is 75. Numerical progress on these issues needs to accelerate if we have any hope of addressing the needs at the scale that we have already recognized we face. Community leaders with frontline experience in poverty reduction, groups like the United Way and Civic Action and the Yonge Street Mission, and even the Board of Trade identified steps we needed to achieve the first increment of a 20-year plan to reduce poverty using our city's own targets, and that involved an extra $34 million last year in housing, an extra $9 million in childcare, an extra $17 million in transit, an extra $14 million in community services. And we need to begin to adjust our poverty reduction work plans
to set numeric targets for frontline service delivery that can meet those 20-year goals.
Thank you.
In that context, I want to recommend that we do move forward with the fair equity strategy, but that we also begin to set those kinds of numerical goals in our poverty reduction strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? No? Tina Shapiro? Tina Shapiro? Thank you. We'll move on. Derek George? You don't look like Derek George.
George, no. But he asked me to read this deputation to you.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
You can for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Executive Committee. Thank you for the chance to speak with you today. Our Member Advocacy Committee at the Corner Drop-In has been speaking out about high TTC fares for 8 years. We all have firsthand experience of how expensive it is to use public transit in Toronto. The TTC can be a big player in the Toronto poverty reduction strategy. The fair equity strategy offers a chance to make a difference in many people's lives. And if you look to this week's report, The Cost of Poverty in Toronto, you will see that investing in poverty reduction will save the city money in the short and long term. We are glad the city is looking at a fair reduction for people on low incomes. However, your amount is only a start and an acknowledgement of the need. What we really need is a free Metro Pass, free transit for all people on social assistance, and we need a $50 pass for people who work on a low income. Other cities are making a bigger difference. If this committee is willing to endorse $1 billion more to save a small part of the Gardiner expressway, then surely you can find the money to subsidize transit riders who can least afford to take transit. Free transit is good for low-income people's health and well-being. We urge you to hear our case and to take action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next speaker is Jameel Moore. Jameel Moore? No? Russell Thurgood? Russell? No? Michael Poliani? And then after Michael is Yvette Roberts.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Polani. I'm a community worker at Children's Aid Society of Toronto. Just wanted to make a couple of quick comments about the poverty reduction strategy. I echo others in thanking staff and council for adopting the strategy unanimously and working on it to make progress on what I'm sure you recognize is a huge problem with poverty in the city. We released a report 2 weeks ago that found that Toronto's the child poverty capital, has the child poverty capital of Canada with the highest rate of child poverty in the country. Others have already talked about the cost financially of poverty to taxpayers and to the city. And we found in our report that low-income children are falling behind at school, are less than half as likely to be meeting provincial math and reading standards at the grade 3 level. So there's a huge loss in opportunity there. And I just wanted to say that I think this is a key moment for TO prosperity and the poverty reduction strategy. 27 is an important year, and I'm hoping that Mayor and Council will give significant public focus to the strategy and the need to build an inclusive city in the upcoming year. Also hoping that any potential cuts to services that are depended on by children and families with lower incomes will be rejected. I fully support the low-income transit fare plan. I think it's an important keynote initiative in 2017 to kickstart and re-energize the poverty reduction strategy. And two final points. I think one point is, if you look at the progress report, it is somewhat difficult to interpret or assess how much progress is being made. And one thing that I've argued for, and I think others have, and Sean Mahar mentioned, is really the need for some short-term numerical progress targets for the strategy. So I'm hoping those will be developed in 2017 along with the indicators that are under development. And then finally, included in the strategy for 2017 is a plan to allocate dedicated funding for new initiatives. And as Sean Mahar mentioned, we calculated that a minimum of $75 million would be needed to implement the poverty reduction strategy. So thank you for your time.
Move on to Yvette Roberts. Is Yvette here? Yes. All right, and then after Yvette is Sonia Uresti.
Good evening. So my name is Yvette Roberts, and I am the coordinator of Young Parents No Fixed Address. Young Parents No Fixed Address consists of 35 agencies and organizations from across Toronto and 100 frontline staff who work directly with and advocate for the estimated 3,000 vulnerable young, pregnant, and parenting youth in our city, and the nearly 300 homeless women who give birth in this city every year. Our network is also part of a growing coalition of networks and service providers who have great concerns for the well-being of the thousands of low-income, precariously housed, vulnerable youth, adults, and families in this city. This council and the TTC continue to increase fares and proceed with a Presto card-only fare system. Our concerns are growing. Based on the recommendations, particularly in Section 10A of the Progress Report, you will have now by now reviewed, there's a recommendation of a Fair Pass program, which is, in our opinion, a step in the right direction and shows some understanding and compassion for the needs and challenges faced by our most vulnerable and at-risk citizens. However, we do not approve of the extremely slow rollout process being proposed. Waiting 15 months to implement Phase 1 to this program and 3 to 4 years before full implementation is achieved shows little regard for the needs of your very own constituents. This very report acknowledges, and I quote, leveraging the new Presto technology and existing city administrative processes, the Fair Pass program recommended in this report puts forward an evidence-based, cost-effective, and user-friendly response to several council directions to increase transit access for low-income residents. So why are we waiting? This report also acknowledges that the proposal is based on a survey of 3,588 low-income residents, along with the lessons learned from 17 Canadian cities that already have a similar program in place. So why keep 193,000 low-income citizens of this city waiting when the need has been identified and the solution is right here? From a recent report by the Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis, we know that low-income residents may forego employment and certain medical appointments and use of government and financial services due to transit costs and travel time. This only enforces poverty and adversely impacts health, as well as the cost burden of health care utilization. This same report also notes a risk of economic and social exclusion when transit is inequitable. People, especially people living on low incomes, rely on the TTC every day to go to doctors, to work, to pick up their kids, to access food and get to recreational programs. The CCEA report also notes that in Hamilton, 75% of surveyed users of low-income monthly passes reported that the transit subsidy allowed them to keep their jobs. And they also predict that for people receiving the transit subsidy, 25% of those unemployed will find part-time work at minimum wage.
Thank you, Yvette.
25% of those working part-time will find full-time work at minimum wage.
Thank you very
We're
much.
seeking immediate implementation. No more delays. Do the right thing now.
All right. The next, no questions? Next speaker is Sonia Uresti. Okay. Josephine Beckford. And after Josephine is Edward Humphrey. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Tory and Executive Committee members. My name is Josephine Beckford. I'm a mother of 4 with 3 of my children currently in university and a husband that just retired with a small pension. Today, my classmates and I are here to speak on behalf of individuals and families who are not able to buy a monthly pass. This caused citizens to become disfranchised from this beautiful city we live in, Toronto, and all it has to offer. How can we make it possible for all Torontonians to enjoy this culturally diverse city despite their income? The attractions are a bus ride away: Salsa on St. Clair, a taste of Danforth, Harbourfront, Nuit Blanche, tobogganing, skating at City Hall. A low-income pass is the solution. It'll give our citizens access to jobs, education, leisure activities. Mr. Tory and executive members, we're requesting assistance for a small amount of the population, 23%, to have access to one of their basic needs, transportation. We're asking you and your team to begin with charity at home. I'm sure at one time or another, everyone in this room needed a helping hand. Let's come together to lift up the most vulnerable and give the gift of accessibility to individuals and family. With a free TTC pass for Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program and a $50 pass for working low income, this pass would make us more inclusive to assist in the development of this beautiful city we call home, Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions. Edward Humphrey, and then Karen Meinsner. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the Executive Committee. My name is Edward Humphrey, and I'm a recent graduate from the University of Toronto and an active community member from the Junction area in Toronto. I'm here today to speak on the low-income pass. I rely on the TTC to travel to work, job resource centers, cultural events, and to visit family for special occasions and family functions, most importantly. I have not been able to afford to buy a MetroPass for many months and have instead relied on my bicycle to get me around to the places and to the people that matter to me. As winter is upon us, the cold weather will make it more and more difficult to travel long distances by bike. While attending school, I had access to programs which enabled me to purchase a MetroPass, but now that I have graduated, I have no longer access to these programs. I did not have a job right away after graduating, and for several months I struggled with my expenses. I had to make the difficult decision to buy food instead of tokens or a MetroPass. What began me on the road to pulling myself out of poverty was going to the library every day and seeking help from job resource centers in the city. Getting into the habit of working on bettering my career and directing my times towards career development, it was essential to be able to travel to these institutions, and living near the downtown core, I was able to take my bike. I just think of the more than 53% of low-income neighborhoods where access to libraries and employment centers are at a minimum a bus ride away. The lack of low-income pass is a prominent barrier to those below the poverty line and on OW and ODSP, who in many cases their transportation allowances must be shifted to cover food and basic living expenses. Mayor Tory and members of the Executive Committee, I urge you to vote in favor of the low-income pass. I believe we can and must do more in terms of supporting our most vulnerable. Though the current pass is a start, OW and ODSP participants need a free pass. And those with low income should get a $50 pass. Lessening the burden they face has been shown to save the city in many other ways and will allow to make the move towards bettering themselves and the community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about such a prominent issue facing many Torontonians. I hope you will vote in favor of the low-income pass and keep an open attitude towards providing more universally accessible tools of success.
Thank you. No questions? Karen Meisner. And then Tom Gleason.
Good evening, Mayor Tory, Deputy Mayor Min Wong, and Executive Committee members. My name is Karen Meinzer. I'm a resident of Ward 14, and I work in Ward 5, where I'm an instructor at an adult literacy and employment services program. I'm also a member of the Fair Fare Coalition. I'm here today to urge you to vote for this pass. It's fitting that today is the first of the month when Torontonians who can afford it have purchased their monthly Metro Pass. Speaking from my perspective as a worker in adult basic education, I can tell you that students enrolled in adult education programs, in literacy programs, adult secondary credit programs, and in ESL classes do not receive any kind of TTC discount. The great majority of these students are low income. That's why they go back to school, to better their opportunities. Many of them have families to support. I know firsthand how people struggle to pay for transit every day. That is why I got involved in the campaign for a low-income pass. The report that is before you today leaves no doubt about the many benefits that affordable access to transit has for people. At our program, we tell students all the time that participating in the community, getting out and volunteering, taking advantage of community recreation programs, using the free museum and arts passes available at the library are critically important steps of engagement along the path to employment. However, as one person told me just this week, without a Metro Pass, something like the welcome policy is almost useless. As you've already heard, not everyone in Toronto lives in a walkable downtown neighborhood. So if you don't have a Metro Pass, you can't really take advantage of the kinds of opportunities the city has to offer. When a person is unemployed or underemployed, a monthly transit pass is a lifeline. When the Fair Fare Coalition asked people to give their thoughts on what a free monthly pass would mean to them, the most common response was freedom. It's the freedom to go anywhere you want, without the stress or worry of wondering if you can afford to go. However, I want to bring to your attention that the discount we're talking about today is not nearly enough. I'd like to quote from an article that appeared in the Toronto Star last week, and I quote, according to the report, the one under consideration today, according to the report, low-income Toronto families spend between 20% and 35% of their disposable income on the TTC, an amount the mayor described as stunningly high. Unfortunately, the report itself makes no mention of the burden of cost of transit on people on Ontario Works or ODSP. So I'd like to point out the following. A single person not in receipt of transit allowance gets a maximum of $706 a month. That's for everything, for rent and basic needs. A Metro Pass of $112 at the discounted rate would take 16% of their total income, or 34% of what I'll call their after-rent income, because there's no real disposable income here. A single person on OW who is in receipt of a transit allowance in this proposal, they wouldn't receive the discount. So they would have $848 a month, and it would take 17% of their total income, or 30% after their rent. Clearly, 16 to 34% of income on transit is not affordable. I wish this proposal contained what we've been asking for, a free pass for people on social assistance and a $50 pass for everyone living below the poverty line. But we're still asking you to pass the recommendations before you, because even this modest discount will put money back into people's food budgets.
Thank you very
much. That $40 will make a difference.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that we participated in the poverty reduction strategy at our program, and waiting until 2018 is too long. That was in early 2015, and we're ready to see action on this next year. So we really ask that you push it to 2017.
Thank you. No questions?
No questions? We listen to questions all day for the other speakers. It's really, really discouraging that there are no questions for us. I hope that's a sign that it's going to just pass.
Tom Gleason. And the next speaker is Rachel Robinson after Mr. Gleason. Welcome.
I'd like to first thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to speak here today. I'm here representing the Toronto Youth Cabinet, the city's official youth advisory body. We strive to make Toronto a more equitable and youth-friendly city. It is our position that this Fair Pass will do both. So, as some of you may know, the rate of youth on OW is nearly twice that of the adult population. So by implementing this pass, you're going to have a huge impact on youth. I would also like to make a note. Some people have commented on the timing of the rollout. I really wish that this committee would encourage TTC and Metrolinx to explain why there is a delay. After discussions with TTC, I understand it's because of a software update that's due next summer. And I wish that that had been made clearer to some of the people in the community, because I think that's a big sticking point. So the next thing I'd like to pull everyone's attention to is on the bottom of page 8, the social and health burden faced by low-income people in relation to transit. With the implementation of this pass, we're actually saving money in the long run. We're boosting employment, we're increasing health outcomes, and so it's with that that I hope that this committee reflects on this report, takes it seriously, and implements this fare pass, and hopefully with steeper discounts than what is currently outlined here. Thank you very much.
All right. Rachel Robinson. Is Rachel here? No? Heather Young. Heather Young. No? Maribel Labra. Is Maribel here? Adina Lebo? Margot Rodriguez? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Margot Rodriguez. I'm also a member of the Fair Fare Coalition. I'm also an adult student at Yorkdale Adult Learning Center and academics. So currently, at this moment, I would like to thank the city for approving this proposal, or at least thinking about it. This would mean a lot to many of us that cannot afford to ride the TTC. Unfortunately for myself and many of my classmates, we are on OW. I myself, I'm on OW, and also I work part-time as well. And because I do receive a transportation allowance, I won't be eligible for this new phase, and they'll be coming in 2018, which is okay for now. Just because it's just a step in the right direction. It's something that the city needs to do, and I am grateful that the city is looking forward to it, and hopefully that you guys will put in the proposal towards it. But also at the same time, it needs to be rolled out a lot sooner, so that way people such as myself who get the transportation allowance can also get the discount as well, be eligible for the discount. At the moment, I rely heavily on the TTC. I go to school Monday to Friday, I work Friday to Sunday, and then eventually from that time period, I go home. And to me, having a discounted tokens, which is great, but for somebody like me who uses the TTC more than twice a day, discounted tokens really doesn't help somebody like me out. A discounted Metro Pass does, because I don't just go to one place, to point A to point B. I'm going from point A, point B, point C, and sometimes point D, depending on what my day is called for. To be able to actually be a part of this phase would mean the world to me, would mean everything to me, because as it stands right now, where most people would always pick food over transit, I do the opposite. I pick transit over food all the time, and I've been doing it for many, many years. Before I had started to go back, before I made the decision to go back to school, I used to work 2 part-time jobs. And I would always have to make that decision again to pick my transit over food, because I need to make money. I need to have a roof over my head. I need to have at least the bare minimum of food in my fridge to provide for myself and my mother as well, in which I live with. So to be able to actually afford to have food in transit would be great, because to be honest, I'm kind of not in a very greatest of moods when I have to always pick transit, just simply because I I need to get to school. For me, education is the key point. I want to better my life. I do not want to be on social assistance forever. And if you talk to any of my classmates, anybody that's on social assistance that's trying their hardest to improve themselves, they will tell you the same thing. They do not want to be on social assistance forever. They want to have a career. They want to be able to provide for themselves and for their family. And the TTC is one burden that they cannot bear to handle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brenda Thompson? And then after that, it says here B. Lee?
Good evening, Chairman Wong, Min Wong, and Mayor Tory, and members of the executive. My name is Brenda. I'm from Scarborough. I take the TTC. I really support the motion that's before you today, but I don't think it's enough. I think we need to have something happen sooner rather than 2018, 2021, and I'm hoping someone will put forward a motion to make sure that low income and people on social assistance get the support that they need to take transit. I'm going to give the rest of my time over to B. Lee. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Billy from Scarborough North. I remember those days. I used to be a Metro Pass user, then a token user, and then I end up walking because of the increasing transit fare every year. Transit is hardly accessible to me. To save a token from places that I could not walk, I walk a lot, sometimes 4 hours back and forth. I remember those days, I walked 1 hour to go to the drop-in center for hot lunch and 1 hour back. I do not have proper walking shoes, and my shoes had holes. I walked so much to a point my big two toenails bleed and fell off twice. And many times my feet get blistered. In the extreme cold alert winter, I had to hitchhike to go to the Out of the Cold program. Mr. Mayor and Councillor, walking is good for health, but not fast walk to that extent. Especially in the winter, I fall many times because of the icy sidewalk. And in the summer, my back get burned because of the burning sun. This is my story, and I believe others have the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor, for the fair pass plan. It's good, but I think you could do better. Many cities across Canada, like Calgary, Edmonton, and others, have a low-income pass or are introduced one. In contrast, Toronto has one of the most expensive monthly pass in Canada and has increased fare 6 times in 6 years. If this city can do it, then I think Toronto can do it too. We are so far behind and have waited too long for this fair pass. For the fair pass plan, instead of studying the plan in 2018, I think there are many ways the plan could start immediately in 2017 to lessen the burden of low-income people. Therefore, this is my recommendation. First, to have 2-hour transfer stopover. This will allow people to do things in that 2-hour trip. Second, to have 50% discounting of peak hour. This will lessen the burden of the low-income people, especially seniors. In 2018, I think the fair pass plan should have at least 50% discount on tokens and pass for low-income people. Honestly, proposed reduction of 33% on tokens and 21% on pass really do not help much to the low-income people, especially people on Ontario work who do not get transit assistance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor, for looking into new neighboring tools like road tolls, etc., for the fair pass plan and other PRS initiatives. I know it's not an easy task for you guys to tackle in the midst of TTC funding shortfall. With the new neighboring tools, fair pass plan could become reality. Transit is essential in everyday life, especially to low-income people who do not own a car. Therefore, we look to you for access to transit. And in your power, you can make it happen. That Toronto is proud to be a city of transit, essential and accessible to all.
Thank you very much.
I pray that God will give you wisdom to touch the new revenue tools and make transit accessible to low-income residents. I look forward to that day that I can afford to take the transit and I do not have to walk 4 hours back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next speaker we have on the list is Paul Codd. Is Paul here? That doesn't look like it.
I have a deputation from Paul Codd, which I will submit.
You could submit it to the clerk. Thank you. Susan Gapta. And then Joe Abby Colburn.
Hi.
Give 3 minutes.
See if I can get this on the screen. I don't know how to make the screen, bring this up on the screen. Oh, there we go. So there's 3 objectives. I'm Susan Gapka. I'm chair and founder of both the Trans Lobby Group and our new project, the Toronto Trans Coalition Project. And so 3 purposes for us to be here tonight and 3 minutes to do it in. To introduce our new project to City Council around poverty and seeing it fitting neatly in with poverty reduction. Members of the trans community experience significant disadvantage, historical disadvantage, and we're hoping to do a few things to gain some support to address the gaps in social determinants of health. We also want to support and connect with and network with the Poverty Reduction Plan, and we see one mechanism of assisting our community members by working more closely with the City of Toronto. I'm also see the mayor over there, John Tory, who actually did come about a week, 10 days ago. A week's a lifetime in politics, but at a flag raising on Trans Day of Remembrance on November 21st, you talked about a new initiative coming in the new year to, and so I'm not sure what that involves, but we're certainly eager to participate and contribute in the city's social inclusion into the city's programs. And we want to support the low-income pass and other mechanisms coming forward for the out of the poverty reduction strategy. So that's what we're here for today. In the area, it's not particularly one social determinant of health, but as you can see in some of our goals, you can't even move that thing, can you? You can't move it; it goes all blurry. But that's for later on. But around income security, access to health care, transportation helps us be more socially included. And that's probably what you've heard a lot from here today. One thing, though, with people on low income that struggle with, concerned about the new Presto Pass coming in, the ability, many of us don't have credit, don't have opportunity to navigate electronic means for accessing that. So hopefully this new program will be in place before you transition, pardon the pun, to any other program like the Presto. So many of us use tokens around. I actually was a long time Metro Pass holder, but when the fares started increasing, I had to give up my pass. I now cycle around the city. So we're almost at time. So I just want to urge the council to expedite any processes around a low rider TTC fare and all other components of the poverty reduction strategy.
Thank you. Joe Abby Colburn. Joe Abby Colburn. No. Dr. Stephen Farber. And then Butterfly Gopal and Ezra De Leon. Or De Leon. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much for allowing me to come here to speak about this program. I'm Steve Farber. I'm an assistant professor in geography and planning at U of T. And one of my research areas is focused on the ability for people to participate in daily activities and how insufficient access to the transportation system affects social inclusion. My research has been funded by federal and provincial government agencies as well as transit authorities in Canada and in the United States. And I was also a member of the advisory committee associated with the Fair Equity Policy Framework and have had the privilege to witness and provide input into what I would consider to be a very reasonable and well-researched program. I'd like to start by drawing to your attention that the city is actually behind its peers in offering discount transit programs to low-income residents. Toronto is the only municipal transit agency in the GTA not offering a discount, and most other medium and large cities in Canada either have a low-income transit subsidy or are developing such programs. I also want to point out that in addition to the necessary discount proposed on the expensive monthly pass, I do commend the innovative decision to offer a discount on the single fare ticket, which will offer the most benefit to low-income populations based on our ridership data, determined from passenger surveys as well as a special survey of nearly 4,000 low-income Torontonians collected in preparation for the development of this policy. My research looks at the importance of transit to the social and economic inclusion of marginalized groups, and based on the research, I expect that reduced fares for low-income groups will result in higher levels of access to employment and economic opportunities, as well as access to vital health and social services. And importantly, I think that this increased access is likely to convert to a net increase in participation, which will provide a very high return on investment in this subsidy. Finally, no one's spoken about this yet, but the evaluation framework attached to this program enables us to measure the full cost and benefit associated with the program, and specifically will look for changes in levels of participation that result from the discount. So the benefits of increased participation, such as finding and keeping employment, participating in the healthcare system, escorting children to social and community programs, among other things, are likely to provide the highest return on investment in the long run. In sum, I can assure you that this program has been well researched, that the implementation plan is reasonable, that activity participation among low-income Torontonians is likely to increase as a result of this program, and that the plan to evaluate the program is likely to provide trustworthy information to inform the implementation of future phases and enhancements to the policy. So in sum, I offer my strongest level of encouragement to this committee to approve the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Butterfly Gopal? Ezra De Leon? No?
I have to apologize for my colleague Butterfly. She had to leave earlier.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ezra De Leon. I'm a member of JFAP, Jane Finch Action Against Poverty. We are a resident-led neighborhood advocacy group.
Sure.
So as residents of the city's lowest scoring neighborhood improvement area, we fully endorse the low-income pass program. However, we're saying that it doesn't go far enough. $112 is still a lot of money for somebody on low income. $50 would be a better price point for a Metro Pass. Like, as a low income worker myself, I avoid the TTC as much as possible simply because of the high price. So I end up cycling or walking a lot of times. And to be honest, Jane and Finch isn't actually contain very good cycling or pedestrian infrastructure. So, in addition to that, many of our seniors, they have a hard time traveling. Like they can't even afford the discounted $112 Metro Pass. So a lot of them end up walking, and winter's coming up. So just imagine a senior trying to walk through the snow with their groceries, and that's very difficult. So, and finally, the program won't be implemented for most of the eligible people until 3-4 years from now. So what we're recommending is the $50 Metro Pass for low-income people and a free Metro Pass for people on social assistance and for seniors, and for the program to be implemented as quickly as possible. Okay. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. We're going to move into questions of staff. Councillor Perks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To staff, I'm just looking through this appendix which lists the complete and partially complete and so on. There's a partially complete achieving number of daycare spaces. What would get complete? What would it take to get complete?
I think the goal was, or the complete goal would have been 200, and I think it was in the neighborhood of 128 that were included in the 2016 budget. The remainder were certainly requested through the 2017 budget.
What's the current waiting list for daycare spaces in the City of Toronto?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I don't have that information.
Round numbers, is it more than 10,000?
17,000.
17,000. And so you've given me a proposal for the 2017 budget. Are there numerical proposals for the future years?
Councillor, there was a child care demand study carried out by Children's Services. I actually believe it's coming forward to the next council that provides detailed analysis of child care needs.
Right. Were there numerical targets for the number of daycare spaces in the future years of the child poverty strategy?
In the poverty reduction strategy, there were not specific numerical targets.
Thank you. What's the number of households waiting for affordable housing in the City of Toronto? Round numbers?
Approximately 90,000 on the waiting list.
Okay. And what's the numerical target either in this year or next year for new affordable housing units being built?
I don't have that, Councillor. I'm not sure that there is a defined target. Perhaps the Deputy City Manager could help.
The affordable housing target that Council has set annually is around if I recall correctly, around 1,400 per year.
1,400 per year. And what did we achieve this year? Round numbers? Yes, Mr. Mayor, a lot more than the year before. I'm just curious, though, is the number in the tens, hundreds, thousands? Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear that.
723 units this year.
Thank you very much. And are there numerical targets in the out years of the poverty reduction strategy for a number of units being constructed?
I'm sorry, I missed.
Are there numerical targets in the out years of the poverty reduction strategy for and could I know what they are?
The targets that Council set for affordable housing it's through their 10-year plan was that 1,400 units per year.
And that's
what we're striving for.
Any other questions? Councillor McConnell. You put your...
Okay, I got it. Okay. So I have 3 questions. I'm going to read them. I've given them to the staff because I know you're out of time. The first question is, to the best of your knowledge, Are the initiatives included in the 2017 Poverty Reduction Strategies work plan included in the staff recommendations that are going through the budget process? Secondly, was the approved funding for 2016 budget for both new and enhanced as well as the base budget supported poverty reduction initiatives expended as planned, or was there a shortfall? And can you remind us of what the total was? And third, what do you consider were the big moves that we managed in 2016, and what are the anticipated big moves that will happen in 2017 if the budget is approved and if this strategy is approved, including the equity fair?
Through the chair, Appendix B of the report identifies which items in the work plan are achievable within existing resources and which require new resources. Approximately $3 million in new requests were submitted through the 2017 budget process. With respect to the second question, for the most part, yes, the initiatives were completed, and Appendix B again gives a summary of each. Some capital projects were a bit delayed. And in terms of what was approved in the 2016 preliminary capital and operating budgets, included approximately $58 million in funding for new and enhanced projects and programs. In addition to that, through the budget process last year, Council approved an additional $12 million in new and enhanced programs, things such as youth employment, 24-hour drop-ins, and the $5+ million for TCHC. On the third question, the big moves in 2016, Council approved the social procurement policy earlier this year. You're considering the transit fare equity program as we speak, and the open door program to get a jump on achieving those numerical targets for new housing of 1,400. In terms of the big moves for 2017, the implementation of the Tenants First report to look at a sustainable future for TCHC, the development of the job quality assessment tool, which will come to Council in Q2 of 2017, the development of the Lived Experience Advisory Group to help guide our work as the people most impacted by it, and embedding an equity lens into the city's budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I had lots more questions, but those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Bailão?
Button. Okay, here we go. So we had several deputants asking us to speed the process for the fare equity. Can you, if we so desired, would we be able to do it?
The program design is dependent on Presto implementation for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the unique element of this program against other GTA or programs in the country that I'm aware of, is that this involves a discount on single fares. In order to implement that, it's Presto dependent.
So it's not the unwillingness of having the implementation done quicker, it's actually the technology is not available to make it.
The technology is a key issue, and actually in every report we provided to Council on this issue, we've indicated that in order to succeed it would be Presto dependent.
Is it a fundamental principle of the program to actually target the help for the ones that mostly need it? Because a lot of these groups, I mean, we have special fares for seniors, for children, for youth, for students. Are we just actually reviewing all these programs and really targeting and focusing on the people that need it the most? Is that what we're actually going to be doing at the end of the day, is focusing all the resources we have for the people that need it the most?
We did not do, we certainly considered the current concession fare programs. They are actually under the jurisdiction of the TTC Commission, not Council, so we designed this program to address the needs of groups that are not currently addressed under any of the concession fare programs. The group that I really want to highlight in terms of our priority in the program design was the low-income working population who have access to very few benefits and for whom this will be particularly important.
Would you say that that could be an important next step, maybe?
It will be absolutely the important implementation phase and really addresses one of the goals of the poverty reduction strategy, which is keeping people from falling into poverty in the first place.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? From committee members? I just had a question. So this is in this Fair Pass arrangement, the financial impacts on page 3 of the report. And where does that money come from? The cost. Is it accounted for? Maybe I should ask Gary that, but.
The cost would be a request through the 2018 budget process, Councillor.
All right. And so it's 36 million in 18, yes? Sorry. It's pardon me. Cumulative costs. It's 5 million in 18, 12 million in 19. Is that bottom chart there?
Correct.
And when fully rolled out in 2021, it's $48 million?
Under the current program design, yes. We would be doing the evaluation. One of the deputants referred to the planned evaluation after each phase. We would come back to council, report on the success or needed improvements. That number will change as we implement the program.
And that money's not expected, that will come out of the city. It's not expected to come out of the TTC, correct?
That's correct. This is being proposed as a city program. It is would be administered by the city in terms of the actual programming of the Presto cards, and TTC would be kept whole.
All right. Speakers, I see Councillor Perks, and then the mayor wants to speak. Is there anybody else? Hello? Oh, sorry, sorry, Councillor McConnell. You're not your usual perky self, and you're sitting very quiet there, which I'm not used to. Oh, sorry. I'll speak up. Councillor Perks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. What you measure is what you do. Just last week, we had the mayor give a speech in which he indicated that he was going to create a dedicated fund using a particular revenue tool to pay for transit and transportation. There is no dedicated fund anywhere in the City of Toronto that I'm aware of to expand the number of daycare spaces or expand the amount of affordable housing in the City of Toronto. And there was no announcement of any new revenue tool to achieve those goals. Further, we have a daycare waiting list well over 10,000, and we're creating spaces at the rate of about 100 a year. That's not a 10-year plan, that's a 100-year plan. Further, we have over 80,000 households waiting for affordable housing, and we're creating at less than 1/100th of that rate right now. It's again a 100-year plan, not a 10-year plan. It is also city policy, evidently, that we'll have an absolutely fixed number for how much revenue we pay to, or how much revenue we're prepared to collect to pay for those important programs. We're going to freeze our property tax at a number, the rate of inflation. Well, that's all very well and good for people who own property. They know that they're going to do no worse than the rate of inflation every year on their costs. But the people who don't own property have a 100-year wait until we put in place the actual physical mechanisms for the things they really can't afford, housing and childcare. It's not adequate. It's not city building. It's not fighting poverty.
All right. righty. Councillor McConnell.
Much. Well, of course, my colleague says the obvious, which is that we need to do more and that we need to manage to figure out how to move along this journey in a quicker way. However, we need to also be able to do it in a systemic way, and we need to be looking at $11 billion budget and how we better use that money to deal with our people of poverty. And that is what really the equity lens does on the budgeting, and is really to begin to look at what do we spend this money on, and why don't we spend it on our people rather than sometimes on our roads. We also need to be able to report better, and I think that we've started that in this first report. We've looked at what it is that we're doing. We've had almost 100 initiatives. There's a lot of initiatives, but we have completed 34 absolutely out the door completed. 21 are almost completed, and we only have 7 that have been deferred, and those 7 are all in the 2017 budget. We also have not reported very well, and one of the ways in which we didn't report very well was how much we spent within the $11 billion budget, how much we really reallocated to serve the needs of people who are living in poverty. And we have not reported out very well on how much we do in housing. So, for example, we have under construction and out the door 1,400 units and 723 rentals and 723 ownership. But we haven't done that very well, frankly. And so what I'm hoping is that we will begin to set up charts and ways in which we can count, because we know that by the time we deliver housing, those housing started 5-10 years ago. So we're really trying to work with budget, trying to work with the city manager, trying to work to make sure that when we're reporting each year, we're reporting on a regular timed basis so that everybody can see what is in front of us. So, for example, we have had a number of completions, but we've also started a number of properties. Is it good enough? No. Are the child care issues still a major piece? Yes. But this is a 20-year step to continue down this journey to support both the work that Councillor Bailao is doing in housing, and also working with the federal government and all of the things that she's doing. This is not entirely that piece, but what we do and what we will do is report out on what we did. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think that what you see is measured, I agree, is what you can manage. So in this particular one, we do make some bold steps. We do, if you approve it today, and I would ask you to approve it today, we do start on that track to getting a fair equity policy and allowing people to get onto the TTC. But we also do a lot of work around jobs, making sure that we've got new jobs like the paramedics initiative, making sure that we're really looking at hunger and not just at child nutrition, but also at nutrition throughout the ages, because that is one of the things that is killing our people early in who live in poverty.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just finish? I got two seconds. The housing report is important, but so is the services. And one of the things I want to point out is that we are working on preventative dentistry for people, as well as youth initiatives, and that fits together with everything that Councillor Perks has said. So I ask you to approve the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Tory?
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Here, there we are. I'm going to move the staff recommendations and speak in support of them, and I want to speak positively about what we're doing here, because I think it's aspirational, I think it's important, I think it's practical, I think it's going to be very helpful. But I will take a moment, just in the spirit of accountability being shared all the way around, to say to my friend opposite here, who I think doesn't miss an opportunity to be hypercritical, that if you want to be measured by what you do, then the number of affordable housing units started and approved by this council in the last years before I was here, when you were here, was 0. The transit equity progress that was made on implementing any measure of transit equity and any kind of a fair pass, 0. Poverty reduction strategy, there wasn't one. Revenue enhancement measures that are put forward for consideration by City Council to try and create revenue, to create transit, to allow people to be connected to opportunity, 0. And so I'm actually proud that we're moving some of these things forward. And I've heard the deputies today, and I'm moving these staff recommendations so that you know and the public know that I am personally going to be invested in and supporting moving these things forward, because I think it's very important for our city. But I also want you to know that I come from a world where you do as much as you can, and I follow along, and I want to thank the Deputy Mayor McConnell for the fact that she's done all the work and continues to do the work and continues to push people like me to do as much as we can. But you can only do as much as you can, and there is much more to be done. And so I looked very hard at this report to see about the discounts that are recommended here at 33%, and that clock can't be right. Did you reset? No, I haven't been speaking for 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, you forgot to turn his time on.
Oh, there it is, okay. I looked at the discounts, and indeed, there are a couple of places, one of which is Calgary, another of which is Paris, that have much higher discounts. But I also look at the design of the program, and I was glad to hear Mr. Brillinger make reference to it, because we are looking at a breadth of a program and the inclusion of people who might not otherwise fit into the program because they're not necessarily on a support program at the moment. And I think that is a very important feature of our program, but that does, to some extent, limit, if you're going to do a lot more people, unless you live in Councillor Perk's world, if you're going to do a lot more people, you might not be able to do quite as much in the initial instance. And I'm proud of the fact we're starting the program. We're going to roll it out prudently and responsibly, and the main reason for the timing is exactly what Mr. Brillinger said. And I told this to all of our Poverty Advisory Committee members, which was that we cannot do this effectively until the Presto card is fully implemented and stable. And it's not at the moment, but it will be in time for this first phase to be done next year. I was also very happy to hear somebody, I think it was Dr. Farber, refer to the evaluation process. This is important, that we see that not only we can say we have a program, but that it's effective. It is helping people to get to job interviews. It's helping people get to the doctor. It's helping them keep employment, and so on. And the process that's provided for here, yes, it's done in a careful way, in the sense that we're not saying, well, let's just open the whole thing up and do it on day one. But it is something that is a careful process that will allow us by the end of the third phase to have a very large number of people relative to any of the other examples. Any of the other examples in this book had a few thousand people in their programs because they restrict it to a very narrow group of people. And so I just want to say that I'm proud that we're moving forward with these programs. It's never fast enough. It's never enough. The discount is never deep enough. I understand that. You'd like to do a lot more. But at the end of the day, I think we're doing something substantial here. And I will say, with respect to the poverty reduction plan as a whole, that we are moving forward on all of these elements. Maybe not as fast as the need would dictate, but we're moving forward as fast as we can on housing. We're actually doing something. We're actually hundreds of units this year on transit equity, on other elements of the poverty reduction strategy. And I'm proud of that, and I stand behind it, and we'll get it done. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
All righty. No further speakers? Councillor Bailão.
And I'll be very quick because I know it's getting late into the night. I really just want to thank all the deputants. I know that many of them were here the whole day, and I want to thank all of them for staying behind. I know that it's not only speaking, a lot of them have been involved in advising and working with our staff, and I think that is important. If we have what we have in front of us, it's because our staff has been working diligently, not only with Deputy Mayor McConnell and our mayor and many of us on different issues, but also with the community as well. So that's what I think we have a comprehensive strategy in front of us. So thank you for that. And I think there were certain things that were said in here that are really, really important. It's that we need to do a better job of measuring the impact that these investments have. And I think that we as a community are doing that a lot better. This last report actually that is out there in the media that is saying to the city, this is the cost of poverty. This is really important because when we come in here, we can clearly say with the facts that this is not only the right thing to do, is actually the smartest way to invest and to make sure that that we are getting the best ROI for the taxpayer. So once again, thank you for the leadership of the mayor, the deputy Mayor McConnell, for all her dedication over the years on this, and to all of you. I think we're doing important work in here, and we are moving as fast as we can, and definitely a lot more needs to be done. But if this collective effort is any indication, I think we have great opportunity and a bright future ahead of us.
All righty. Thank you, Councillor. I believe we have the mayor's motion to adopt the recommendations in the report. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh. All those in favor: Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Bilow, Councillor Crawford, Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Palacio, Mayor Tory, and Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong. Unanimous. All righty. We are on to our next item, 20.14, new implementation approach to the FG Gardiner Expressway revised strategic rehabilitation plan. We have two deputants. The first one is Ketan Shankardas. All right. Do you have an extra copy of 14? Yeah. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you for hearing me and for your stamina in still being here this late in the night. My name is Ketan Shankardas, and I'm an associate professor at Wilfrid Laurier University, an associate scientist at the Center for Urban Health Solutions at St. Michael's Hospital, and a social epidemiologist by training, and I live in Councillor McMahon's ward, actually. I'm here to talk about how the city can work to better protect the health of our children, particularly their respiratory health, by doing a more careful job of city planning and building infrastructure. In particular, I think the city needs to be doing a more careful job of considering how it can mitigate the impact of traffic-related pollution as it continues to develop the cityscape. I'd like to start by briefly reviewing the findings of a study entitled Spatial Analysis of Exposure to Traffic-Related Air Pollution at Birth and Childhood Atopic Asthma in Toronto, Ontario. I've included a copy of this paper along with two lay summaries of our findings in Toronto's southeast and southwest, respectively.
Sir, are you going to relate this to the report in front of us?
I will be, yes.
All right.
In the package before you, this is a study that I conducted with colleagues at the Hospital for Sick Children in Health Canada. We studied children in grades 1 and 2 in schools spread across the city and measured whether or not they had asthma. We collected information about where they had lived from the time that they were in their mother's bellies until the present, and we modeled the exposure to traffic-related air pollution they would have had at each of the residences over their lives. We found that those kids who were born in the city's southwest, including Parkdale, Roncesvalles, Sunnyside, and Brockton, and the southeast, including Riverdale, Regent Park, Cabbagetown, and the space where the Gardiner will be transformed into a promenade, and the northeast, were more likely to develop asthma by the time they reach school. In the case of these asthma clusters in the southwest and the southeast, our analysis indicates that a relatively high exposure to traffic-related pollution played an important part, particularly in the southeast, where the Gardiner will be redeveloped. Okay, so what do I think the city could be doing better to protect our children in these areas? This is where the Gardiner comes in, but not quite yet. I'm going to go back a few years to when the Sunnyside Bike Park was created in 2014. I was pretty excited about seeing that development when it first popped up. And then it dawned on me that that's actually a really bad place to be encouraging children to go and exercise. When we exercise, we breathe air more deeply into the fragile pockets of our lungs, and the toxins in our air can get deeper in there and do more damage. So effectively, the city is encouraging children to go exercise in a clearly polluted space in a part of the city where there appears to already be respiratory problems. I'm sure you can appreciate the problem. Getting to the Gardiner, the plan is to bring a significant number of cars on the Gardiner down to city level along a promenade extending eastward from Jarvis Street.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes are up. Hamish Wilson? Hi, Hamish.
Yes, Thanks for squeezing me in here. It does seem strange that we don't seem too worried about the project creep of having another $1 billion just arising for doing this stuff. And again, I've been worried about the car traffic here for ever since I think this is from like the 80s or the 90s. City of Toronto document. There's a huge influx of motor vehicles from the West End primarily, not exclusively, into the core. And we just don't, the GO's been great, but we just don't seem to be able to think, oh, we can actually like really put an effort into developing good transit and getting people to take the transit and freeing up the space on the Gardiner and making less congestion in the center of the city. I think it's pretty obvious, and that's the real worry for me, is that we're not actually doing transit again. I'll refer again to this World Finance magazine that had an article on elevated expressways. I'll read again. There now seems to be a trend towards such reversals. I'm not sure, quote, I'm not sure I can name a city that isn't thinking about removal, Kennedy said. And I'll send this copy around with you to the clerk. But that's the real concern, is like, yeah, how can we get rid of the thing? Please. Even though people, I'm not saying don't come into the center of the city, but can we actually manage to encourage transit? And here, this goes back 10 years ago. It's something that I, really had been thinking about it. The downtown relief line in the West End, which I think is more important than doing any subway out to a bikeable distance at Pape and Danforth. Most importantly for me is that somehow we're almost approving an official plan amendment for a bit of road right exactly where a key part of this downtown relief line would be. We need to actually really encourage some expedited transit. And instead of merely just doing tolls, which I think is a start, I guess, to ask the province for permission, although it puts it up to their level and it doesn't actually really grasp the nettle and move it along. How can we actually move faster? Well, I think if we had and I am a bit of a rodical, I must admit, not just a radical, a rodical. Can we actually convert it, give it to the TTC? The TTC owns property. It can accept, it's not quite a shift and shaft, but it is sort of a poison pill, I guess, of giving a slightly used, decrepit expressway, fixed up in some ways. But if we gave it to the TTC as a transit way, well, they'd be very interested in actually putting the fare styles on it. We have a big surplus of tokens coming up, so we could call it a transit way. If people want to actually get on it with their four-wheeled vehicles, then put in 2 or 3 or 4 tokens, and there we are. And if they didn't want to take it, well, we'd have an express busway, and sure, they'd be starting out in Humber or something, and of course it's radical to suggest that you park your car and take the transit, but actually it's not that radical. There we are, park car at city limits and use TTC transit. Oh, only from the 1950s. So, project creep, I'm sorry, this is astounding that we have the billions for this.
Thanks, Hamish. That ends our deputations. Questions of staff. Councillor Perks.
Thank you very much. This is a very dense report. Can you just summarize for me quickly what it is you're recommending in terms of a changed approach from what Council's already approved?
Through the chair, last year when we brought a report forward to committee and council, it was recommending that we undertake the implementation of our strategic rehabilitation plan for the Gardiner, extending from Highway 427 right to the DVP, including council's decision with respect to incorporating the hybrid 3, in as part of that plan. We had recommended to proceed with that project as a P3 procurement, public-private partnership. And at that time, there was a federal program called P3 Canada, which would afford us up to 1/3 of the capital cost. For our project, it represented about $820 million. What's changed now is in the year that has passed, working with Infrastructure Ontario, who is our partner, we've updated the cost estimates both for the section west of Jarvis Street as well as the section east of Jarvis Street. Both sections represented an increase of $500 million. In total, that was $1 billion. And then further to that, the federal government hasn't been forthcoming with a contribution, the $820 million that we sought. And so at this point, it was the prudent thing for us to do is to now revisit the procurement approach. It doesn't make much sense for us to proceed as a P3, particularly in the section west of Jarvis Street. And so the report that you have before you is recommending a more conventional design, bid, build approach.
I'm going to have to stop you there for a second. I'll stop your time. We have to extend, it's 10 o'clock. So, yeah, Mr. Mayor? How would you like to complete the agenda? Oh, well, I know you would like to complete the agenda.
Sorry.
How many items do we have?
So shall we extend till, let's say, 11 and see how it goes? Extend to 11? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor, I'll start your clock again.
Well, I guess that's good we're not using the IO approach. This way we can guarantee it doesn't go in upside down.
That's the Metrolinx approach.
IO did the purchase. What is currently the quantum between, since we're revisiting this, I think I need to know this, and since the price has gone up, with the current approach between the boulevard option and the hybrid option?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, the quantum is basically from the report that we last did at 724? 718. 718, I'm sorry, back in March of 2016. Coupled with the IO procurement, it's now grown to, give me the number.
So the quantum between the two different methods, not the quantum between your previous...
It remains roughly the $300 million quantum.
Okay.
Roughly, both of those things rise.
All righty. Further questions? Seeing none? Speakers? No? I'll move the staff recommendations. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. All righty. 2019 Progress Report on Open Data Strategic Plan. Richard Pietro, is Richard Pietro here? No? Keith McDonald? No? Gabe Sodney? No? Mark Richardson? No. Certain level of efficiency doing this late at night. So we will take. They're expecting to be here tomorrow. Oh, really? We'll take it into committee. Any questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers.
I have a motion to move.
Okay.
Sorry, it's on the screen. The City Council direct the Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Information Officer to report to the March 7, 2017 Executive Committee meeting on an update progress report on the Open Data Strategic Plan, and B, to report to the June 19, 2017 Executive Committee meeting with a definitive assessment with tangible results and delivery commitments. And so this is, just to speak briefly about this is part of the Open Data Initiative that the city's been working on. We have an Open Data plan that we've been working on. This is asking, as we're moving this forward, for some firm benchmarks and target guidelines that need to be added into this.
Can I ask some questions?
Yep.
So the staff report want to receive this. Why don't you just want to receive this?
Sorry?
The recommendation is to receive.
Correct. And this is to put some more firm deadlines in it.
So, and this is just
one of the.
My concern is March 7th Executive Committee means the staff have to report back pretty much. You have to write a report in January to be ready for February. And my thinking is, Councillor, that the report, there's not enough time, and it's such a short span of time. Maybe you should push that back a little bit so you'll get something a little bit more fulsome than nothing has really changed.
So the staff have seen this and from the IT department, and they're okay with it.
Are they? Where are the staff?
Through you, more time is always better than less time, but we'll do what we can. Yep.
He's the CFO.
No, I understand that. It's just my.
He's not the
thing
tech
is
guy.
This is December, right? To get a report done and filed for February.
I understand.
You're going to have 30 days, and you know,
So do you wanna
is a
say-
lot going to get done in 30 days?
I didn't manage.
Do you want to say April?
More time, as I said, is
April?
always better. April would be better.
Okay,
Please.
so I will amend it to April.
All right. All right. No further speakers. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm going to strongly support the amendment, and which I guess becomes the motion in addition to receiving this report, because I think on this we're not ahead on this.
No.
We're behind, and I learn this everywhere I go, including in Israel and in Canada, other places. And I think the notion of having some more deadlines, as much as our staff try hard to do all of these different kinds of things, I think it's a good thing. And so another month is not going to make that big a difference, but I think the notion of having a deadline for a report on the plan and on progress for same next spring is a really good idea. And I plan to enthusiastically vote for Councillor Ainsley's motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll take the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That's the item. Okay.
Thank you.
Item 2020, the Walk for Reconciliation. Karen Joseph. Is that you, Karen, there? Wow, trooper. Thanks for staying so long. All right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today. I'm here basically to tell you a little bit about why it is, what Reconciliation Canada hopes to achieve in this, and some of the impacts that it might have on the city itself. Ultimately, our vision is a country in which all of our children are able to achieve their optimum potential and some level of shared prosperity. And how we do that is really in engaging people in open and honest dialogue about the diversity of our histories in this country. And we do this by recognizing that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. When we, as a people living together in the same place and time, both Aboriginal and the rest of Canada, are stronger together, and working together to move beyond some of the histories that have faced us, and to achieve a greater strength than we could have alone. What we're doing is inviting all Canadians to come together to find some common ground through storytelling and through story listening in dialogue circles that build a sacred space of trust, openness, respect, and honesty. And it's through these kinds of initiatives leading up to the Walk for Reconciliation that relationships are made and partnerships are built. There's many definitions of reconciliation, and one of the things that we look at, we understand it to be, is namuyut, which means we are all one. We need to find a way to build bridges between all communities and peoples in order to build a better future that includes all of us. And we're really looking at trying to figure out how we can get along better, how we can respect one another for the unique gifts that we bring, and finding a time and a place to show our children, our neighbors, and even other countries that Canada knows how to engage in respectful and responsible relationships. And ultimately, we wanted to be able to answer the questions when a five-year-old asks you, why can't everyone just get along? What will you say to your own children? And our answer is, we can. Hope can take on a life of its own when it's done in a coordinated fashion and in an aspirational moment. And I think that this Walk for Reconciliation offers that opportunity to the City of Toronto and to the region and even to the province, very much as it did within the City of Vancouver. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. We have the committee decision here in front of us. Does anybody want to move that? Yeah, the mayor's going to move that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're now on to 2026, which we actually previously adopted, but the clerk tells me that we need to reopen that because there was a speaker and we didn't call that speaker out. So this is the capital variance report for the 9-month period ending September 30th. So all in favor of reopening? Opposed? That's carried. Peggy Mulder?
Tim Dobson, I was one of the earlier scheduled speakers. Peggy's handing out copies of our submission for the committee members.
Oh, so you're with the Lakeshore Planning Council?
That is correct. I'm the chairperson, yes.
Okay, great. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We're here to speak with the executive committee regarding the capital expenditures for specifically parkland dedication and parkland acquisition. And I refer to the city's executive committee EX 44.14 dated August the 20th, 2014, which was an OPA 197 approval of the Mimico by the Lake secondary plan, in which the city was to give consideration to identify coordinated capital investments in the Mimico by the Lake secondary plan area to act as a catalyst to attract private investment into the secondary plan area. 2 years later, on August the 30th, 2016, the Lakeshore Planning Council and some other parties had appealed this plan to the Intermunicipal Board, and the Intermunicipal Board issued a 93-page decision which gave direction concerning this plan, which included that the plan by the city be further modified to reflect the following items: land acquisition for public purposes, and that the city should verify that there is a congruence between the scale of the proposed development in this plan that it anticipates and the likely receivables in terms of value, and also the objective of improving Mimico's ratio of parkland to population, given that the city or this area is going to increase its person to population or parkland dedication or person to parkland ratio is going to be diminished. And so that it also should have coordinated budgetary commitments to ensure that there's some proper parkland dedication. Please refer to Appendix C in our submission here. The board also directed the city to assure that the parties of this appeal were to reconvene and come to some consensus over the following 4-month period from August 30th until December 31st, 2016 to resolve some outstanding matters, but we've not heard from the city on this matter. In our view from the Lakeshore Planning Council, we found that the directions that the OMB gave in terms of land development and parkland proportion, that there was no congruence whatsoever, and that the scale in the Mimico secondary plan for ratio of parkland to population, in light of the city's citywide targets, has not been met. So as a party to the Intermunicipal Board hearing, the Lakeshore Planning Council is still waiting to hear from the City of Toronto in terms of the OMB's direction to meet and coordinate some sort of mediation to come up with a proposal to go back to the OMB for by December 31st, 2016.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes are up. Any questions? My question is, what would you like? What do you want?
We would like the executive committee to have, to instruct the legal department and the planning department. Yeah, that's right. We request the executive committee direct both the city planning and city legal departments to comply with the intermunicipal decision of August 30th, 2016, contained in paragraphs 390 and 391 of its 93-page decision, and have them properly consult with the Lakeshore Planning Council on this matter as directed by the Ontario Municipal Board, we've heard nothing over the last 4 months. And we've already responded to the Ontario Municipal Board that we have not heard from the city on this matter.
Thank you. I think you're kind of at a level of detail that the staff are unprepared for. So, could we send this on to council without recommendation, and can you kind of work it out and report at council? Is that all right? So we'll send it on without recommendation, and then you can report to council, and you can talk to the deputants and trying to address this.
I would also like to speak on that.
Does this achieve your? This.
Just to add a couple of things.
Sure.
For instance, I'd like you to see this handout, and with respect to the purchase of parkland, we've done some numbers, and we're basically talking about $7 to $8 million of city funds to purchase parkland.
So we actually we don't know anything about this, and we're happy to look at it, but it's probably best that we get you together with staff, and then we can.
It's just for your information.
Yes, that's great.
Staff knows about this, and the problem is they just don't communicate with us.
All righty. Well, we're going to send it on without recommendation, and then we'll ask some questions at council, okay? So all those in favor of sending it without recommendation, opposed, that's carried. All righty. 2030, accessible communications at meetings. Miroslav Glavic.
He's sleeping. He's better sleeping. What number is this?
All right.
Oops. Hello? Okay. I could summarize my deputation with one sentence. With all due respect to staff and all of you, accessible communication at meetings suck. And that's the nicest word I could say. To make the meetings accessible, for example, the doors to enter the committee room 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, only one of them is accessible where the media tends to enter. And I am hard of hearing. Noise is not good for me. Countless executive committee meetings, certain members of council, like Michelle Holland and Anna Bailao, keep talking and talking and talking to each other. That noise makes it very, very difficult for me. Same thing when the committee chairs. I rarely speak more than 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Keep it quiet. Don't have conversations on your phone when people are deputing. That's your requirement at AODA. I have mentioned for 6 years, I'm hard of hearing. The city is supposed to accommodate me. I don't know sign language. There is a stereotype that hard of hearing people know sign language. The only sign language involves one finger, if you'll catch my drift. It helps to keep quiet. Same thing, sometimes city staff are noisy on the room downstairs. You shouldn't be making it difficult. I'm never going to ask the city clerk office to have a sign language interpreter because I can't get ASL. I tried learning it. Where's it? One more. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the deputy? No? Any questions of staff? Oh, pardon me. Sorry, I missed that. Emily Daigle. Emily?
Yeah, waiting for Miroslav. Sorry. I'll try not to flip the table this time. This one's actually nice. It's perfect height. Those of you that were, hey, this mic is actually awesome compared to committee rooms. Wow. So it's very quick. My name is Emily Daigle. I've been an accessibility advocate for 27 years. There's a few things that frustrate me. One of them is the committee that actually is supposed to help people with disabilities with TTC. It's not even accessible. ACAT meetings. Rooms too small, no FM units, and no microphones, or people don't talk into them. Like council members. Committee rooms 1 and 2. The deputation table. Well, on Tuesday, if you'd been there, you would have seen that I had a major problem. The little tiny short microphone, like what's on your desks, I can't reach it, and the table's too low. And as I was trying to get in like I did now, well, my arm got caught as I was trying to reach for the other microphone, and the whole table flips over. So I am working on getting it so that the tabletops can lift up and down, either by electric motor or by crank. Number 3, and this is very, very, very important. There's FM units for community rooms and for council chambers. Most of them don't work. Only one of them actually we've gotten to work here in chambers. And maybe one, if we're really lucky. I tried all day today in the committee room, wouldn't work. And kudos to the amazing AV team, because they work their butts off and they're amazing people. But when there's broken equipment and apparently no money to make it AODA compliant, yeah, that's a problem. My biggest problem is counselors that don't use microphones. Being legally blind, the signage for the committee rooms is too small, and the papers where you post it are too small. The agendas need a larger font that's sans serif. Microsoft Sans Serif 18 point or 16 point would be beautiful for the body of the print. And why is there no ASL trained staff in City Hall? And I ask this because today there was a group of 75 deaf people that came to City Hall during morning. I went downstairs to grab a drink of water and a Coke. And I had to sit there and sign for a whole bunch of deaf people that didn't know where there was bathrooms, didn't know how to talk to security, didn't know where the meeting was, were frustrated because the executive committee had no ASL or no closed captioning, and the TV that I fought for here in Chambers has been off all night tonight. So it would be really great. The biggest problem, the committee rooms, why is the accessible door, the only accessible door into the rooms, over by the media and staff? How dare you discriminate against people with disabilities from being able to access committees? And that's basically what you're doing, because we can't get in that door. We can go in that door, great, but then we're near the media, we're by the staff, there's no room to sit, there's no room to move around, we can't get a drink of water the way any able-bodied person can. And it would be really great if some thought was given. God forbid somebody runs for council, or God forbid even worse, for mayor, who's in a wheelchair, or who's blind, or who's deaf. What are you going to do then? Because why is there only 2 seating spots in this chamber? Meanwhile, there's all this for able-bodied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
I do.
Oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Emily. So
Miss you.
Miss you too. Used to live in one of my favorite residents, as opposed to Miroslav, wherever he went. Emily, so
Yes.
one of the recommendations in the report is for the city manager to report back every 6 months. So what some of the things that you've just described, do you think 6 months is an acceptable time? Do you want every 6 months?
I personally would feel that every quarter would be better, and to have the Disability Accessibility Committee more involved and not just have them as an afterthought.
Okay. And what would your suggestion be to have the Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee more involved?
Have them more involved with the workings of City Hall. Have them more involved with the signage issues at City Hall. I mean, you try and use that wheelchair bathroom at the front by the restaurant, and I mean, you're trying to go to the washroom, people ramming on the door because there's signs so small to see where the able-bodied bathroom is. Stuff like that, stuff like ASL interpretation, stuff like closed captioning. They can advise you on this stuff, stuff like large print, agenda minutes, different things like that would be great. And I think that they have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience when it comes to that, lived experience. And I think that's even more vital on places like TTC, where ACAT is basically an afterthought. We meet in a building that's old, that doesn't even have a wheelchair bathroom on the same floor as the meetings. Like, how is that? You know, and it would be really great if you guys would give a lot more credence to a committee that's supposed to be advising you on accessibility, yet no, who's here from that committee? There's the counselor that chairs that committee is not here, doesn't come to the accessible TTC forums, and in general, City Hall is very inaccessible, and it's not fair. It's simple as that. It's discrimination, hands down, and you know what? It would be really great. I have times where I can't even come here because I get so frustrated, and having that committee have a voice would be wonderful, and having more counselors be able to do what Andy Byford did and Rick Leary did and get off their feet and get in a wheelchair and wheel around this city on transit and know how bad it is. Yeah, that would be great, because I bet you anything, anyone in a wheelchair trying to get around City Hall as a counselor, or God forbid as the mayor, there's no way. So thank you for that question.
Okay, thanks, Emily, and thank you for waiting all day to make your deputation.
I haven't eaten most of the day. I've missed both soup kitchens. I've been here since 10 after 9 this morning. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Speakers?
Questions of staff.
Questions of staff? Go ahead.
Yep. So, sorry, for the city manager, Mr. Wallace, I just wanted to ask about the second recommendation about reporting back to the advisory committee every 6 months. What you thought if I amended that to quarterly?
So I appreciate the seriousness of the issue and do appreciate the views of the deputant. In general, my experience has been that a quarterly cycle is something that is very useful for things that can be reasonably expected to change on a quarterly basis. If we do not expect material change on a quarter, we end up with kind of a routine report. I'd prefer to have it every 6 months and more focus and more accountability in terms of the biannual updates.
Okay, and then my second question, so once again, the second recommendation where City Council directs you to report to the Disability and Advisory Committee, would it be more appropriate for the Chief Corporate Officer to be looking after this?
It would be more appropriate and frankly result in a better sense of direction.
So you're okay with that if I made a friendly amendment to that effect?
I would not object.
Okay, thank you.
Not that it would matter if I would.
Any further questions? No? Would you like to speak?
Just to make that amendment, and I want to thank Emily for spending the day here and bringing her concerns here, and I would like to move a motion to amend recommendation number 2 to replace city manager with chief corporate officer.
Okay. On the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. On the item, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Item number 2032, accessible bus routes. Miroslav Glavich.
So I'm not your favorite constituent, Councillor Ainsley? I heard that. I'm kidding, you're still my favorite councillor, just so you know. I know the feelings don't go both ways.
Where you live.
Crap. All buses are accessible. I know most of you haven't been. How many of you actually take transit? I know Councillor Ainsley is taking the GO train. Okay. Whew. Okay. Take a streetcar. Okay, good. Streetcars are not accessible. Just because the bus and the new streetcars are accessible, that doesn't mean the what's called the actual stop is accessible. I have a few back problems that I'm supposed to be taking it easy, but I walk as much as possible. If any of you come to Scarborough, especially anywhere on Lawrence Avenue between Markham Road and the Pickering border, you're going to notice that all the bus stops on the 54 and including the 116 Morningside buses are complete crap. And this is the nicest way I can put it. They're not accessible. The city, you all are fully aware of AODA, which is provincial. You're required to do it. It should be 100% accessible. Many of the bus drivers need training. All of you need accessibility training. I hope the mayor yells at Bombardier for delaying the low floor accessible streetcars. Please do it every day until they bring it. I challenge all of you to go in a wheelchair all over the city and see how inaccessible it is, especially transit. Warden Station is not going to be accessible until at least 2025 to 2030. Kennedy is not really accessible, well, half accessible. Half the stations are not accessible, so they don't exist. There's no excuse for anybody. If your bus route is not accessible, you can't go you can't go to a doctor's appointment, buy groceries, go see a Maple Leafs game, but we know they'll never win the cup.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
things like that. Thank you.
Any questions? No? Questions of staff? Oh, pardon me. Emily?
Hello again. Okay. So can I have my 3 minutes started, please? Thank you. So, accessible buses are wonderful when the ramps work. Now, I know Councillor Ainsley knows about this issue because he and I have chatted about it, and I wish Councillor DeBaremaker was here because I lived in his area too, and in former Councillor Cho. We're not even going to go there, but yeah. Accessible buses are wonderful. Why is it we use buses that are crap? Ramps that are not cleaned, ramps that are not fixed properly. It's great to order new buses, but what about the attitudes of the operators who don't want to pick up wheelchairs? There are quite a few, and unfortunately, there are customers who have caused that problem, and the drivers who get terrorized by a certain female passenger then take their hatred and trauma out on everyone else, use the big paintbrush of hatred. So, some bus stops are crap. Scarborough, why is it that for the last 3 winters, I don't know about this year because I just moved, the bike paths downtown were cleared, nice and clear, before the bus stops in Scarborough? I live in a part of downtown Toronto that we're fighting for streetcar, which Pam was here. I live on the 514 Cherry with the NIMBYism that's happening. We have a bus route has a horrible routing, and I want to work with the city to change it to a better routing. But we have streetcars all around us that are not accessible. I have to fight every day, TTC, to at least have one streetcar on the 514 accessible, and to not let it be short-turned. I don't want to be on Wheel-Trans. I really don't. I don't want to be stuck in a cab for 2.5 hours. Why should I? I'm a human being. So these buses are vital, and keep them in working order. Why can other cities buy beautiful buses called New Flyer? And York Region Transit has the BRT New Flyers, and, well, Nova's for the BRT Viva system, and New Flyers for other spots. Zoom buses in Brampton, New Flyer, and other models. And they work. The ramps don't break. Why is it that we have vehicles where we can't keep the ramps working? We can't keep bus stops properly cleared, much less have bus stops wide enough for a wheelchair to get on and off properly. In front of Cedar Brae Mall, there's a bus stop where there's only one way off the pad. It's a small sliver of sidewalk. The other end is all mud and grass. Well, last year, when they cleared the snow, they cleared the wrong end of the bus pad. They put the snow pile on the only piece of sidewalk to get out of the bus stop. Oh yeah, this chair is 640 pounds, me in it. Oh baby, stuck in the mud, digging a hole. So the buses are vital. And the bus substitutions for streetcars, thank you. Because that's the only way I can get it wrong. Queen and King and Dundas and College. So as these old streetcars fail, or even before, let's put more buses out there. We need the new garage. We need to fight the NIMBYism of that garage because we desperately need buses. I know driver friends that sit in the garage for hours because they can't go get their bus because there's none available. So there's bus routes with no buses running on them. There's, you have horrible service, people complain. We need more buses. And we need to stop the games. We need to stop the political games, and we need to stop the NIMBYism games.
Right.
Because transit is essential.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions of the deputant? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of staff? No? Any speakers? Anybody want to move the report? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item 2034, Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee on 2.6% budget reduction. We have one speaker, Miroslav Glavich. Go ahead, Miroslav.
Okay. I'm going to upset all of you in 3 seconds, just so you know. Reducing the 2.6% on the accessibility budget can mount to discrimination, just so you know. City Hall is not accessible. I have made many deputations over 6 years, and Councillor Ainsley listens. Emily has mentioned, and if you guys don't make this building accessible, she's going to come back again and yell at you, and she scares me. If you want to remove 2.6% of this, why don't you people remove 2.6% of your own paychecks and budget accounts to know what it feels like? The city should be spending more, not less, or anything being reduced on accessibility. If any of you knew what it is to be a person with disability in the city of Toronto, which is horribly for accessible, then you wouldn't be reducing by 2.6%. And I don't know why it's even 2.6. Random number pulled out of somebody's rear end. Councillor Christine Wongtam does a very good job at the Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Don't reduce this committee. You shouldn't be, you should be reducing certain trade checks. It's disgusting. The city should be doing way more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputant? No. Any questions of staff? No. Speakers? Councillor Crawford, you have a motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I have a motion that the Executive Committee request the Budget Committee during the 2017 budget process to consider the impact of all service improvements and changes to individuals and families living with disabilities. Just very quickly, when I heard the 2.6 target and it was going to be impacting disability access and inclusion area from the committee, the only thing I can say is 2.6 was a target. Many divisions, agencies across the city achieved the 2.6 without impacting services in any way. And I can't say at this point whether or not the 2.6 has impacted the disabled. That's why I want the committee to be looking at that as we move forward into the 2017 budget process. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ainsley moved the recommendations, the committee decision? It's replacing it? Is that your intention? All right. All those in favor of that? Opposed? That carries. 2038 flexible work hours. Miroslav Glavich.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, for the motion. you have my vote next election. I don't know if any of you worked outside politics, but a lot of companies nowadays are doing flexible hours with the internet and technology and Skype. You can work from home. At my work, most of the staff, we don't have a central area. You can work at home. When the city clerk answers my email when I ask for to be added to the deputation list, they can be somewhere in Turks and Caicos or anywhere in the Caribbean to answer that email. 4 months ago, technically speaking, when I sent an email, I was in Quito, Ecuador, on vacation, sending an email. It's 2016. A lot of companies are moving in a decentralized work environment. Not everybody needs to be here. I'm sure the city clerk's office, they would love to be in the Caribbean when they do their work, instead of a cold winter Toronto. I'm sure most of you would, you know. But with Skype, with Facebook Live, YouTube, and all that technology, and your cell phones, and your laptops, you can have alternative work arrangements. That's starting to be the norms for the past 6 years in many of the tech giant companies in North America. You know. Okay, the end.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, questions of staff? Councillor Ainsley?
Sorry, I'm not sure who to direct this, Mr. Rossini. In the recommendation in this report, it directs staff within all relevant divisions to immediately prepare action plans to implement a flexible work hours. Is there a cost to that, or? Or how long that would take to implement?
Through the chair, there would be a need to assess some of the IT-related costs, in particular, as far as ensuring that we have sufficient remote access for staff.
Okay, and then the other question I had about relevant divisions. So that's something that'll be determined by the city manager, and then that'll be within that report?
So our intent would be to determine where we might be able to pilot this approach, and where, depending on the nature of the operation, it lends itself to remote or telework arrangements.
Okay, so I'm sorry not to nitpick on, but you just said pilot some. So are you looking at doing a pilot of how this would work, or this would just be report's going to come back to say this is what we want you to do with flexible work hours, and this is how we're going to roll it out?
In our discussions to date, I think we would like, because the organization is so large and because the operations are so different across the organizations, we would probably want to identify some areas where we think it would be more simpler or streamlined to implement it or pilot it in that approach, and then learn from our experience and determine how we expand it more broadly, whether we want to expand it or what changes we might want to make.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any speakers?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, yep. I'll speak briefly. I'll move the recommendations in this report. I think that, here we are in the 21st century, and a number of the things that we're doing, not only at the floor of this council, but encouraging our staff to do. And I think the flexible work hours concept is a key component of that. I encourage everybody, if you haven't been through it already, there's 2 pilot projects currently underway in Metro Hall within the office modernization project, where flexible work hours and flexible workspace is a very key component of it. And as an example, one of the goals within that office modernization project, when you look at Metro Hall, that's a building that, as long as I've been here, we've always talked about selling, that it's overcrowded, that there's not enough space in there, the two pilot projects, it's anticipated that Metro Hall, using flexible workspace within this office modernization project, we're going to be able to accommodate another 1,000 staff within the confines of Metro Hall. And I think that having flexible work hours, allowing our staff to work from home or, remotely, I think is a key part of that as we move this city into the 21st century. So I'd ask everybody to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to move a motion that actually amends the recommendation. It says, but has my name on it now. Very good, Madam Clerk. And I think that probably the recommendation that's here is broader than might be the case. But I think we should walk before we run. But I will say this, I think the notion that we sort of just discard doing this kind of thing is inconsistent with our desire to modernize the city. And I don't mean modernize just in the sense of doing things that are consistent with contemporary work options for people in most places in the private sector, but more so even the notion of being able to modernize the city government and make it more efficient in terms of the use of space, physical facilities, and so on and so forth. It's very much tied into the comments just made by Councillor Ainsley. We are, again, way behind in terms of at least having the options available in some places for our employees. We actually are involved in some kind of organization that's encouraging other people to do this, and we're not doing it, I don't think, or at least we're not considering doing it to an adequate extent ourselves. And I like the actual use of the word relevant divisions, because I think there are clearly parts of our business where you can't have people working flexible work hours, but there are others where you can. And I think the motion here simply says, look, let's try and see about some kind of a place inside the government, an appropriate city division determined by the city manager, where we can try this. And so I think that's appropriate, that we should be, again, trying to lead the way as opposed to looking like we're not resisting these kinds of things. So I would hope members might move this, which is sort of a compromise in a way that says we'll give it a try.
Yep. So, alrighty. Deputy Minister Wong, I would like to, on a point of order, I'd like to withdraw my the motion in this report in favor of Mayor Tory's.
A wise decision.
Thank you. I have one once in a while. Can you call my father-in-law for me?
All those in favor of the mayor's motion? Opposed? That carries. That's the item. All right. 39, designated spots in Toronto police stations for residents who buy and sell through classified ads. Miroslav Glavich.
$39, right? Yeah, okay. With all due respect to Councillor Kelly, which he's totally awesome, second favorite Scarborough councillor after Ainsley. Most people who sell, have any of you bought from Kijiji or Craigslist? Nobody's going to go to the nearest police station. Most people don't know where the nearest police station is. Councillor Kelly is worrying about, for safety reasons and things like that. If I put a scam ad and Major Tory answers the ad because I'm selling whatever, and I'm planning to rob you of your money and not give you whatever I'm selling, I'm not going to go to a police station, you know? This doesn't make sense. If a lot of most of the scammers and thieves and whatever, there's a lot of them in Kijiji and Craigslist, they're not going to go to a police station. It's like the most wanted criminal going to a police station. Never going to happen. The standard thing is you meet in a public space in a local plaza like Fairview Mall, Sherway Gardens, Eaton Center, things, Jane Finch Mall, things like that, a big public place. Most people are not going to go through the troubles of going to a police station. The nearest police station to me is a 20-minute walk. I am all going to go 20 minutes just to sell whatever the heck I'm selling, you know?
All right.
What are you selling?
My phone.
Okay.
What? The end, yeah, sorry.
Finished? Thank you. All right, any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none? Motion to, oh, do you want to speak?
Sure. I'd like to move a motion to defer this item indefinitely.
A fine motion. All those in favor?
Compliments in a row.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. Let's see, we've got Housing Accessibility Fund, 2043, and that's Emily Daigle. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, 2040 comes first. Request for report on the feasibility of changing the City of Toronto's policy on statutory holidays. Miroslav, don't feel compelled that you have to speak to it. No, no.
Excuse me. Please don't kill me.
2040 on the holidays, Miroslav.
Okay. Can I depute? Seriously? Excuse me? Okay. Our statutory holidays, it's too close, are based on the Christian calendar. Over 100 years ago, in this city, the what's it called, the motto, the slogan of the city is diversity or strength. We have thousands of people of different religions, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and others. They have different holidays. I don't celebrate every holiday. I don't celebrate Jewish holidays. I'm not Jewish. They should, if you have different holidays, you should be able, the City of Toronto's policy should be that should change to not just the S word I can't pronounce, holidays, what you said, to reflect what's at the bottom of the coat of arms of the City of Toronto, which is a big giant one right beside Major Tory's office. That says diversity, our strength. We should be celebrating diversity, not just the Catholic-based holidays, and this is coming from a Roman Catholic telling you the city should reflect the diversity we have in the city. Thank you. Finished.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputant? Questions of staff? Mr. Mayor.
In order to implement this, would it have to be the subject of something that's collectively bargained with the employees?
Through the chair, yes. In terms of its application to members of the city's unions, it would be a matter of collective bargaining. These are the types of matters that are addressed in all the collective agreements.
And I'm assuming it would be your advice not to, even if we felt so inclined, not to give it to people who are not subject to collective bargaining, and not, in other words, do it for one group and not another.
Typically, the approach that we take is that we deal with it through the unions first and then apply the same type of negotiated benefit to non-union staff.
So the first opportunity we'd have then through Mr. Deputy Mayor would be when our current agreements are open again, which is like almost 4 full years. Do we have a 4-year deal? A 4-year deal, don't we?
It expires at the end of 2019. Now, that's to say if we were to do this specific proposal, the city continues to accommodate employees who require time off in accordance with the Human Rights Code to work with them to afford them opportunities that they need to take to observe religious states that are important to them.
And just so I'm clear on that, because I want to sort of, I'm going to probably move that we defer this as well, but just to be clear, 2 things. Number one, I've just forgotten now, in our collective agreements, is there a floating holiday anyway that people have?
In both the Local 416 and Local 79 collective agreements, there are floating holidays. There aren't floating holidays in the Local 3888 collective agreement, which governs the firefighters. But the firefighters typically work the statutory holidays in any event, regardless of when they occur, and they receive a premium for doing that.
But you're saying the majority of our employees would have a floater that they could use on a given religious day that was important to them if they chose to do so?
They already received 2 floaters.
All right. And then secondly, you're implying, and I want to just make sure I confirm this, that for others who may not be covered by that for some reason or other, that there is a policy of accommodation to the maximum extent possible for people who want to celebrate a given religious holiday.
That's correct.
Those are my questions, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, just to follow up quickly. So my understanding in the union agreements, there's 2 floating holidays to accommodate conflicts that might arise over religious holidays?
So city staff, in addition to specific designated statutory holidays, are entitled to take 2 floating holidays subject to operational demands on other days through the year, whether it's for religious observance or other matters.
Okay, and you mentioned to the mayor in his questions that the Human Rights Code, we have to comply with that. Have we had many complaints against the city for not meeting employees' religious days of obligation?
No, there was...
In the last year, 2 years?
No. Through the chair, we have not, to my knowledge.
You haven't had any?
Historically, there was a case in 2009 that went to an arbitration hearing involving one of the city's unions that related to this issue, where the arbitrator determined at the end of the day that the city wasn't required to provide additional paid days off beyond the collective agreement requirements that were in place at that time. So when this matter has been specifically arbitrated on the issue of should we provide additional paid days beyond the collective agreement entitlement, the answer was no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I would move, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that this be deferred indefinitely.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2043. Housing Accessibility Fund, Emily?
Hey. Don't mind me, I'm at the tiredest you guys have ever seen me. Just a quick shout out to to Mary Margaret McMahon for grabbing me a glass of water earlier. I couldn't access this. I'm scared of this thing. I've dropped glasses in here, so no. Simple technical amendment, if possible. As a person with a disability who is also an accessibility advocate, the word accessibility is used inappropriately throughout this document and with the title as well. This document has nothing to do with making homes accessible. It has nothing to do with making homes barrier-free or assisting those who are disabled living in non-accessible homes to make their homes accessible. It is all about affordability. And it should be called something along the lines of Housing Affordability Fund or Affordability Assistance Fund or something along the affordability line. The word accessibility is used throughout the document, and yeah, it says accessibility to housing, accessibility to be able to own a home. The word accessibility, as a person with multiple disabilities and both sensory, cognitive, hearing, and physical, that term used throughout a document like that is rather, I kind of find it offensive, but it's just used in the wrong sense completely, and just to have the technical amendment would be really great. And I spoke to a couple of counselors earlier this evening, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Thank you. All righty. Questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Bylaw?
I have a couple of motions. One is actually acknowledging the deputation that we just heard, so just to change it to make sure that people understand what the fund is all about, so to change it to affordability. And the next one is actually to refer it to the Director of Affordable Housing Office. And there has been questions if it is even feasible. And so I think he can make an assessment of that, and then if necessary, report back. If not, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. So we'll take those motions. Do you want to take them together? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Do we have to take the item? No. Last item, 2036, City of Toronto Council Recommendation Citywide Real Estate Review. It's recommended that the Executive Committee receive this report for information. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I believe we're finished.
I have a point of order. If we're
Yes.
finished, I just have a small point of order.
Yes.
Just to express my thanks to you, Deputy Mayor, for being in the chair for the last little while. It was a pleasant, I may never go back there again. And secondly, to express our thanks to the committee members and to the members of the public, but also to our staff who, I think it's good to get this work done today, and we appreciate everybody's indulgence in making that happen. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a long meeting, eh? Hey, Paul, good thing you got that coffee. Thanks, Anna.